Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the GTFusiOn 2021 Team World Championship. And today marks the final day of the Round 5 race weekend, where it will be our top 3 splits who take to the Autopolis circuit for some fast and furious racing in Super GT class cars. We're going to be taking a look at Lobby C, also known as Group C, or the third split, so the third from tops. This is our third fastest set of drivers based on their ELO ratings and qualifier ratings, and we are expecting plenty of racing action tonight over the course of the 4 races that we have built on the schedule. In the commentary box tonight, you'll have myself, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and it's great to be back after what was some absolutely fantastic racing in Group F last night in our 6th split, and our Group F drivers showed that you can battle Autopolis and you can take the fight to other drivers, even in the sections where you shouldn't, and we are expecting plenty more today from our Group C drivers. But before we get into all of that, let's take a step back and introduce the series to those who are uninitiated. What is the GTFusiOn World Championship? It is a Team World Championship as brought to you on Gran Turismo Sport and over multiple iterations of the Gran Turismo franchise on the PlayStation software. So we're currently on a combination of PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. It is a Team World Championship that has been run for the best part of multiple decades almost now, I believe. And it is to determine who is the fastest team out of multiple teams taking part over the course of a year of racing. There are 6 rounds split across the year, 3 in the first half of the year, 3 in the second half. We are in round 5 of 6 right now, and indeed it couldn't be tighter, with every point being absolutely critical at this juncture to determine who is going to come out on top and take home the all-important prizes. There's also a prize for the best driver of all, and we've had over, I believe it's in excess of approximately 200 to 300 drivers take part in the season so far, and only one of those drivers can be crowned the drivers champion. But the focus, of course, the majority of our drivers is more on the team champion, but there's prizes in both categories. Now, as for the purposes of round 5, why are we at Autopolis? Well, we are indeed today in Japan. We are at the Autopolis International Race Course Circuit, and for those who are wondering where is it in Japan, it is located at Hita City, Oita Prefecture, and this is a circuit which you will commonly see featured on the Super Formula Series in Japan and also the Super GT Series. A circuit which is known for being incredibly tight. It produces some fantastic racing, but also is a major challenge of a circuit in terms of the management of tyres and the management of cornering capabilities. This is a circuit in particular where you either love it or you hate it. Most drivers I've normally spoke to have ended up in one of those 2 categories. Personally myself, I think this is one of the best circuits you can race at, for the simple reason that whether you're in a qualifying mode or a race mode, it pushes you to the limit, and we will see that. Now, why are we at Autopolis in particular, and why is it we are in Super GT cars? Well, to give you a little bit of a history lesson here. The 5th round of GTFusiOn is inspired based on the magnificent double victory of the Lexus racing team in the 2019 Super GT Championship, where they were racing at the Autopolis circuit. For context, in the 6th round of the 2019 Super GT series, there was a race that took part at Autopolis, and the race led to a number of drivers coming to the Major 4A, a number of drivers who were sleepers originally suddenly coming to the eyes of the media, many battles, a number of incidents, but most importantly, after 2 hours of breathtaking racing, it was the case that Lexus would triumph in both the GT500 class, so that's the faster cars, and the GT300 class. It would be the combination of Heikki Kovalainen and Yuichi Nakayama who would take the overall victory in the race in the number 39 Denso Cableco Lexus LC500 in the GT500 class as well, and that was part of Lexus Team SARD. Meanwhile, in the GT300 class, it would be the driver pairing of Ritomo Miyata and also Hiroki Yoshimoto who would win in the GT300 class in the number 60 Cintium Lexus RCF GT3 of LM Corsa. Now, these 2 driver pairings, let's talk a little bit about particularly the GT500 pairing. So, talking about Heikki Johans Kovalainen, he was born the 19th of October 1981 in Suomussalmi, Finland, and he is a Finnish driver, of course. He took part in 111 Formula 1 Grand Prix, and many of you will remember Heikki Kovalainen from Formula 1, but of course he's went on to have a much more successful career outside of Formula 1. If not, getting into Formula 1 and taking in 111 Grand Prix is not success in of itself. And it was the case that in 2015 Kovalainen moved to Japan to compete in Super GT in the GT500 class with Team SARD, and he was to win the championship in his 2nd season in the series in 2016. Meanwhile, here's co-driver Nakayama Yuichi, or Yuichi Nakayama, however you want to phrase the naming order there. It was a case that being born in Tokyo on the 25th of July 1991, he's a Japanese racing driver and he has an impressive list of successes, and he's far from being a novice. Maybe the best known for winning the 2013 All Japan Formula 3 Championship. You put these two together, a winning combination in the GT500 class, and indeed, today we are here to celebrate the success of Lexus in 2019 at Autopolis by seeing our drivers take to the circuit today in a rather successful Lexus of its own, and that car, as we just take a quick moment to bring out our details here, is the Lexus AU Tom's RCF 2016 machine. Now, our drivers are going to be running it with a special balance of performance today. All of our drivers will be running with 104% power, that is 638 brake horsepower, and a weight of 102% based on the setup in GT Sport, and that equates to 1,040 kilograms. And our drivers are most importantly allowed to tune their cars, and this is a major factor in the racing, in the fact that this will mean that some drivers will tune their cars for acceleration, for top end speed, but I suspect the majority will be tuning the cars for handling and also tyre conservation, which is going to be critical. We do have heavy damage on, meaning if a driver picks up damage to the suspension, the aerodynamics, alternatively the engine, they will need to pit to repair it, or they will alternatively soldier on, and our drivers are only bringing the Michelin Racing Hard compound to the circuit today. We only have the one tyre compound available. All of our drivers will be expected to use it over the course of the entirety of tonight. Now, the Autopolis circuit, 4.6 kilometres in length, or just over, is going to play host to all four of our races, plus the two qualifying sessions. And with that, let's now talk about the session and the schedule for tonight then. So, at 1:15 in approximately 2.5 minutes time, or just under that, so that is British Summer Time and UTC +1, it'll be 6:15 this evening. We'll be getting underway with the first of our two qualifying sessions. That will be a 15-minute qualifying session to determine who will be on pole and our grid order for race number 1. Race number 1 will then be a 6-lap sprint, and it will be a case of no strategy involved. It's just a sprint from start to finish, and depending on where our drivers finish, we will have a reverse grid for race number 2. So if a driver wins race number 1, they will be starting at the back for race number 2, and conversely, the lowest place driver, the last place man in race number 1, will be starting right at the front on pole for race number 2. Race number 2 is the strategic feature race, which consists of 17 laps, and we're expecting strategies and pit stops within there, and we'll talk more about the strategy and the pit stops as we build up to that race. And then we will be taking a 10-minute break after races 1 and 2. So that will be approximately what is 7:30 this evening. We'll be taking that 10-minute break, or roughly just a little bit before that actually. And then after the 10-minute break, we'll be getting back underway with the racing. And in fact, I think it'll be the case at 7:30 we'll be back underway with the racing once again. So the 10-minute break will be about 20 past the hour. But we'll wait and see how the schedule plays out. And it will be the case we have a second qualifying session, which will be 6 minutes in length. And then that will determine the grid order for race number 3. And then after that, we will go straight into race number 4, a reverse grid feature race once again, 17 laps, and that will conclude our night of racing. Now, over the course of tonight, I will be tracking the drivers' progress and talking about who has scored the highest. Remember, all 4 races are weighted the same in terms of points, but as we now see our drivers starting to make their way into the lobby, and I believe we are expecting all 13 of our participants in Group C tonight, we will introduce our drivers in the qualifying session. So in the 15-minute qualifying session, we will use the opening half of it to introduce our drivers based on ELO rating order, or their ranking order, starting from highest to lowest here. But in the meantime, we're just waiting to get racing right now. Our trackside steward today and our lobby host is KRT's the Dr. R10, who will also be racing. The German has volunteered to host for tonight, and we're very grateful to have Dr. O on board. But whilst we are waiting now to go racing, I'm just going to check in with our main stewards. We're not hearing anything from our stewards right now, although we are hearing, my apologies, we're hearing that it's the case and that it will be that we do have a driver who is going to be slightly late. So we are going to see that is the case, that we do have Aurelius, WSR Aurelius will be slightly late to the proceedings tonight. And I'm just going to let our lobby host know. Give us 2 seconds, ladies and gentlemen. So I've just informed, and that's the case. Thank you to our stewards for letting me know and passing on that message. And this does happen every so often, of course. We've got so many drivers across the globe making sure to race at the same time that, of course, one or two may end up being a little bit late. So we're going to experience probably a slight delay to our schedule. But whilst we are waiting to go racing, and I'm just waiting for confirmation on how late he's going to be. I think we're just waiting on that confirmation right now. And in the meantime, whilst we are waiting, I'm just going to check into the chat right now and see how you're all doing. So we can see there, we do have Paolo Vanoli saying good evening. Good evening to you, Paolo. Also to Piosco once again. It's good to see you once again, Pio. We also do have here what looks to be Zigchical's finest. It's good to see you again. And he's cheering on Kimbex. And we can see that Paolo Vanoli supporting the GTD drivers tonight. GTD Traro in particular. And we will be talking, although we can see that there's a slight issue with Traro by the looks of things. So I think we're just also trying to rectify that issue right now. We can also see there we've got Christoph Kozlowski once again saying hello. Hello to you, Christoph. We've also got RTA's Momo87, who was racing, of course, in the Group F lobby last night and pulled off that brilliant win in race number 4. And we say hello to Momo. We have also got there, by looks of things, Michael Abana, who's saying good evening and hoping to see some nice race. Indeed, Mikel. It will be the case that you're going to see some fantastic racing, hopefully. We've also got GTD's Tavarelli 82 there, saying hello. Buona sera to you as well, my friend. We've also got Leonis PL saying hello. Good evening to you, Leonis. We've also got Thomas Pirazzu. I believe that Traro is on his way. We've also there got ESRM Chris Boo saying hello, and I think talking about GTMX Swede Hunter there. And we do also see in here we have. And Doctor is actually racing for Poland, so whilst he's got the German nationality next to him, he is racing for the Polish team. We do have a couple more minutes whilst we are waiting right now. We had Traro who dropped from the room, and we can see that Michael Barner supporting, by looks of things, we're saying hello to Zig, Biosco, Matteo, and also Calafior there as we now wait to go. So we're just going to let them know we have heard that Aurelius will not be able to take part in the first 2 races. So we are just passing on that message. So apologies, ladies and gentlemen, for this being a little bit disrupted right now, but of course we're trying to sort everything out. Okay, so we have confirmed all that, ladies and gentlemen. So we are going to be missing Aurelius for a period of time. But if you haven't said hello in the chat yet and you're a little bit shy, don't worry, feel free to say hello if you want to. We're not going to bite. Let me know how your weekend's gone, who you're cheering on tonight as well, and what you're expecting from tonight's racing. As we do see there, Traro78 from GTD arriving in the lobby. We've also got Speed Hunter in here as well, and we are due to start in approximately minutes. We are 5 minutes behind schedule right now, whilst we have been waiting for our drivers who are outstanding to join us. Of course, Aurelius will not be joining us until the second half of tonight's proceedings, which is very unfortunate, but it happens, of course, and we do wish all of our drivers well as we now go into the lobby, and we're getting the countdown now from Dr. R10 for us to go racing. And as we can see there, everyone getting the thumbs up, it's going to be the case that we have got plenty of racing action ahead of us. And as we see here, Primo Kazuya making his way through turn 6 and up towards turn 7. This circuit made up of what is 19 corners. We're going to take you through all the corners, take you around the circuit for a number of laps as well. You can expect you're going to get the full lowdown on the Autopolis circuit as we wait for qualifying to get started. But we're having the words there from all of our different drives. They're all giving their thumbs up to say they're good to go racing. It's fantastic to see, and I think any moment now we will be getting the 10-second countdown to say that qualifying is go, go, go. And for those wondering, by the way, in the background, I am currently liaising with the chief stewards, and on top of that, trackside stewards, as we get the countdown for qualifying. Who's going to be on pole? Let's find out. Alrighty then, well, 15 minutes to determine who is going to be on pole. It's a long time, and it means our drivers will have approximately 8 to 10 laps in order to try and put in the best possible lap. And as they all start to pile out of the long pit lane here at Autopolis, you can imagine everybody will want some clear air out on circuit once they've got those tyres up to temperature, and they will be looking to nail their qualifying session and get off to a flying start. Now, with regards to our drivers in the lobby, we're now going to introduce our drivers one by one. Of course, we do not have Aurelius here currently, so it will be the case that we will introduce him a little bit later on. We'll make reference to him, but we are going to introduce our drivers based on their ELO or ranking points. Now, the average ranking points for this lobby is 1,262.77, so a very high ELO for this lobby, and that's why they are, of course, the third split. But we start off with our leader, or our highest rated driver, and that is Prima's Kazuya, as he makes his way into turn number 8. The Frenchman here representing Team Prima from France, and it is a case with a ranking of 1,266.16. If you haven't heard of the Prima Motorsport guys, the esports team, then you probably have been living under a rock, because they are a very strong French esports team, a rising set of drivers over the course of the years, very well known within the highest splits of the FIA race as well. We've had a number of Prima drivers feature in both top split and primarily as well in recent years in second and third split. You'll find them up there, and a very strong team, and Kazuya spearheading the charge here in Group C. We then have on 1,265.08, so a sizable gap already between Kazuya and the next driver. We have the driver of what is RTA's own, as I try to find him, there's the Italian, it's RTA's GMP, Giampietro essentially, but we'll be referring to him as GM from this point onwards, and the RTA driver here making his way through turns 15 and 16 into 17. The Italian representing Team RTA and looking to go racing. Team RTA, a team which is not to be doubted. They run a very fetching livery, as you can see here, a livery that goes very well with the car, but they're not just about their livery, they're also about their pace and the grace respect they've shown. And if anything's to go by Momo 87's performance last night, we can expect that his Italian counterpart in this lobby is going to do very well. Next up, we have GTMX's Speed Hunter, another Mexican representative here, and that is, of course, the GT Mexico team as he makes his way through turn 2 and down towards 3, and Speed Hunter representing Team GTMX tonight. And we do know Speed Hunter, we saw him earlier on in the season putting in some stellar performances, and we look forward to seeing what he can do against tonight. He is our third driver on at 1,264.36 ranking. We then have our first of our PRT drivers, our first Polish driver here, and that is Nixo PL. And we can see the Polishman right now making his way through the turn 10 hairpin, and he is representing Team PRT tonight with a ranking of 1,264.33, and very closely matched to Speed Hunter's rating. So our top two drivers are in a little bit of a world around in terms of their ranking points, and then we have that close contention between Nixo and Speed Hunter. But Nixo right now will be looking to go flying. The Pitbull Racing Team drivers will be looking to get their fangs out, I'm sure, and dig their claws in. In P5 overall in the ranking here today, we have KRT's Adamus, and you will have seen, those of you who tuned into Group F last night, you will have seen Adamus in the chat last night, supporting his teammates and getting as much information as possible going into tonight. And we can see here the KRT driver as he makes his way through the double right sequence of 14 and 15. And Adamus here, a fast driver from what I'm hearing, and we are looking forward to seeing what he does tonight with an ELO rating of what is 1,263.39, as he gets it a little bit wrong. They're going into turn number 17, but he's recovered the car very nicely, and he will be going again very shortly. But there is Adamus. Then our sixth driver is GTD's Traro 78, and we'll just find Traro a little bit further around the circuit as he makes his way up towards 18. Here is the Italian right now, Traro, who was having some difficulties getting into lobby, but he's made it. The GTD drivers EU team as he makes his way through 19 to complete his opening flying lap of this session, and the Italian setting the provisional pole there. So it's the case that Traro is definitely getting off to a shout very early on in the 564 car, and he's got an ELO rating of 1,263.09. Only 0.08 ELO below him is our driver from representing Team AFC, and that is the Canadian here of what is Farstand. So he represents TGTCQ, but he is racing for Team AFC in this series, and the Canadian right now making his way down towards turn 11. Currently provisional P3 in this session right now as he drifts his way down the hill into 11, a little bit too late on the brakes there and trying to get the car to hold on, but it's locked up on the brakes and drifted as a result. But I'm hearing rumours down the paddock that Farstand being our middle driver, he's right in the middle in terms of the ELO ratings for this lobby. You can imagine he'll be giving it everything he possibly can with his ELO of 1,263.01. We've then got to look to our next driver in the order, and that is the Frenchman, a Frenchman here, our second Frenchman in the lobby, and that is Honeys Nassas. Oh, sorry, Nasanus 69 there. We're going to be referring to him as Nasanus from this point onwards as he makes his way here through turns 8 and into 9. And the Honey driver representing Team Honey, of course, on an ELO of 1,262.70 and not to be ruled out. Very fast team, and we look forward to seeing what he is able to achieve tonight. And then looking a bit further down, we next have ATR's Dachu, who is representing Team KRT. As we see the Polishman here, another member of the Polish community, making his way across the timeline right now for Team KRT on an ELO of 1,262.14. Of course, he does have his teammate Adamus in the lobby here, and also the Dr. R10. And can the three KRT drivers do something special in terms of teamwork and perhaps secure the podium altogether in one or two of the races? We then have WSR's Vulcan, and he is our backup host for tonight. So if we do have any technical issues, then we will be jumping over to the Turkish driver. And here you can see WSR Vulcan making his way through turn 8 right now, currently provisional P6 in this qualifying session. And I have had the personal pleasure of knowing Vulcan for some time right now, and it is the case, a very fast driver, but also a highly respected driver within the GT Fusion Championship. And he will be doing everything he can to try and win tonight. A very, very fast driver. I've had the pleasure of racing alongside him, I believe back when we were racing the Fittipaldis in Interlagos in Brazil back in round 2 or round 3. I can't quite remember the round, but it was the case. He was absolutely flying, and I can tell you he'll be looking to do well tonight. And he's representing Team WSR in ELO 1,261.68. We then come over to our Greek driver here of HKRT, and that is the Hellenic Knights Racing Team driver of Kossi 97, and we'll refer to him as Kossi from this point onwards. He's currently provisional P5, and the Greek on an ELO of 1,260.88, a fast driver, and we're looking forward to seeing what the Greek man is able to do as he comes across that timeline and goes provisional P5 once again at 136.097 there. And then we, of course, do have WSR's Aurelius, who's not currently in the lobby. He's due to arrive the second half of the racing tonight, so we hope that the second of our WSR drivers is able to join us, the Frenchman, who is on an ELO of 1,260 flat compared to Kossi's ELO of 1,260.88. And then last but not least, our trackside should and our lobby host is our lowest driver in terms of rating here for today in Group C, and that is KRT's the Dr. R10. And the KRT driver here with an ELO of 1,259.16, he's definitely not the slowest right now, despite his ELO being the lowest, and he's got a lot of potential today in the fact that he's currently provisional P3. So that's all of our drivers introduced so far, minus the one who we are missing. And let's take a look at how this qualifying session has played out thus far. And what we can see, and he's currently purple in Sector 1 once again. Primus Kazuya here with a 135.570. Now do remember there is no tyre wear or fuel consumption modelled in this qualifying session. So our drivers are able to push these cars to the maximum as soon as they've got the tyres up to temperature. You still do have tyre temperatures that you have to worry about in GT Sport, even in these settings. And we can see here Kazuya making his way through turn 9 and up towards turn 10 right now into the hairpin. And he's looking at very strong as he does go purple in both sectors 1 and 2. So Kazuya right now, the Frenchman, looking to raise the bar. And with the current bar being at 35.570, I do not think we're going to be seeing any 34s in qualifying. I think he does want to raise that bar by a further 10th at least, because he's got Kautis Adamus right now, who is only of 16 thousandths off of him, and will be doing everything to try and close that deficit down in terms of the qualifying, but it's looking very close. And can Kazuya, who we're going to follow to the end of the lap, can he put this qualifying session beyond the reach of Adamus and the Doctor, who are both competing? We're just going to see him come to the end of his lap right now as he comes through turn 18 and into 19 very shortly. Very smooth line through 18, with the rear just stepping out a tiny bit there on the exit, but that's not going to cost him any time. He crosses that line, and it is a 35.399, 1.5 tenths faster. He raises the bar to 2 attempts. Our provisional P2 man, meanwhile, is Kauti Adamus there with a 35.586, and he'll be looking to improve. He's not improving so far in Sector 1, and he's only got 7 thousandths between himself and his teammate, the Doctor. Now, of course, these two would love to lock out a row together, but even if one of them's on the front row and the other's on the second row, you can imagine that if the guy behind, say the Doctor in this instance, is able to get a good launch and Adamus is not, the Doctor can then work to try and get Kazuya into a battle with him to bring Adamus into the fight. And that's the teamwork aspect that we did see last night in terms of Kautis Clarence in particular, doing some phenomenal launches, particularly at the start, and really holding up the field after he got into the lead. But meanwhile, provisional P4, we can see at GTD's Traro 78, only 22 thousandths off of the Doctor with 35.615. It is very close for our top 4. And then in P5 right now, it is WSR's Vulcan, who is 2 tenths down on the top 4. So really, that is the delta right now. Our top 4 all seem to be very closely matched, and then Vulcan is the best of the rest, and he's only got got a gap of what is 100 per second to Honey's and Nasanis 69 there on a 35.858. So it is the case that right now those two are really competing, Vulcan and Nasanis, for what is the third row of the grid. And further back, it's only 3 thousandths to RTA's GMP, as we can see GM making his way across the line. They're not able to improve this time. He's still got 5 minutes to go. He's got approximately 2 to 3 more laps of qualifying in which to try and improve. And we can see he'll currently be joined provisionally on that full throw by GTMX's Speed Hunter, who is a 10th down. And Speed Hunter's not got his work completely done yet, because he does have Fastan right now. The 8th is the case that Fastan here trying to improve as well. The AFC driver, who's P9 currently on a 36.0 and trying to find that way to get himself onto that full throw, if not a bit higher, and he'll need to do so because he's not safe on row number 5 right now, with HKLT's Kossi doing a good job there at keeping him honest, and only 300ths off the Greek, who you can see now making his way through turn 8 and currently on a personal best going through sector 1 and into sector 2. We're going to stay with Kossi just a little bit here to see what he does over the timeline for the end of sector 2. Is he able to stay blue and therefore set another personal best? He's not. He's lost out in sector 2, so he's got to try and make it up in sector 3 as another 271 driver as he comes out of the hairpin. Meanwhile, in P11 at this point in time, it's ATR statue here. We can see the Polish driver, who of course will be representing tonight, as we mentioned earlier, Team KRT, as he comes out the left-hander of the hairpin there at 36.236, 1.5 tenths off of Kossi. And then last but not least right now, it does seem as though our two Polishmen are struggling a little bit in terms of time. But when I say struggling, do keep in mind, from Nixo PL to our pole man, it is a second. 1 second is the deficit between 12 drivers. That is how close it is right now in terms of this qualifying session, and we can imagine that delta is only going to condense as they come to the end of their qualifying. As we do look back up to our leader right now, who's not improved any further, but what we can see is that Charo has improved for GTD, and he's improved to what is a 35.474, putting him only a tenth, if just under a tenth, of the Primus Kazuya right now as he goes through turn number 17 and up into 18. And it's with that we do jump on board with Charo, who's going to take us around here for a lap of the Autopolis circuit. So 19 corners. Let's take you right. So across the timeline he goes there. He does not improve and he goes on to another lap. Building up speed here, heading up into 6th gear. And as he makes his way down towards turn 1 here, looking for the brake board on the left-hand side, that 50-metre board, just before it, coming all the way down to 2nd gear and attacking the apex, rolling down the hill as the road camber changes, the road angle changes downhill, coming through turn 2 completely flat, up into turn 3, completed sector 1, looking for that brake board on the left-hand side, the 100-metre board, and coming down to 3rd gear, attacking the apex of 4, before swinging to the right to go for the double left-hander of turns 4 and 5 right now. And as he comes on through these corners, coming into the hairpin, getting the car over to the left slightly before rotating through the hairpin there, using 1st gear to get the rotation, then stamping back on the throttle, up to 2nd, up to 3rd, through 7 and up into 8 here. Now he's got to trail the car through turn 8, just balancing it on the throttle, coming down to 3rd gear to get the extra rotation and the wheel spin there to push the car through the corner. Now through 9, completely flat out, a bit too high on the apex curve there. Now into the turn 10 hairpin, completing sector 2. Heavy on the brakes here, coming all the way down to 1st gear, and as he rolls over the crest of the hill and down out of the hairpin now, down towards turn at number 11, building up all that speed into the downhill braking zone here. You want to go as late as possible and just let the car drift down the hill. A very smooth line there by Traro as he now comes through turn number 12. Uphill he goes. It's the long ascent now, the big handling sector here. Through 13, going up to 4th gear and now stamping on the brakes and trailing it through into 15 here, trying to avoid going down to 2nd gear. And he's not using 2nd at all. He's really looked at building 3rd gear as he comes through 17 and as he now makes his way up towards 18, the long right handle, one of the longest corners on the circuit, and he's gone a bit deep there. I think this is to prepare another lap. He's gone for the deep line to launch and go on the offensive for one final lap. As he comes through 19, the little kink left-hander completes the lap, and we appreciate Charo taking us around there, but getting ready to go into one final flying lap as we see Kazuya has yet to improve even further. And I say that as if it's a case that it's a bad thing. Well, no, 35.399 right now does seem to be the lap for pole, but we'll wait and see as the Doctor racing for the Polish team as the German, we can see here coming up into turn number 11 as he makes his way on through. It is the case that the Doctor doing a good job here keeping the leaders honest. He's only 1.5 tenths of Kazuya right now, and he does have his teammate, of course, of Adamus, who's currently P4 and he's on a personal best and also a best sector 1 of anyone, but his sector 2 there lacking by comparison and costing him some time. A 35.5, his current best lap. I mean, to be fair, putting himself on that 2nd row would do very well, and we have 2 KRT drivers who are going to be occupying that 2nd row, and they could work some magic. Meanwhile, we've got Vulcan, who's yet to really close up the delta to the top 4. Although I say that, it is the case he has slightly improved compared to when we last looked at him, but not enough. And he still finds himself 4.5 tenths off of Kazuya. And he'll need to try and improve. As we see there, the Doctor has improved as he goes on to his final lap. He's gone and held on to P3, but he's raised that that bar. He's raised that position there with 35.533, so only improving by 2,000s, but those 2,000s could be life or death in terms of being on that second row, as we do see the Mexican driver of Speed Hunter sets a personal best of 35.925. Only three drivers outside of the 35s. That is Kossi, Dachu, and also what is Nixo, as they're all trying to get to terms. As we can see now, we have had the end of the 15 minutes. Everybody who is now on a lap needs to complete their final lap as Dachu comes across the line here. Does he improve? It is not an improvement from Dachu. Who else is to come on through? We're just waiting to see. We see Kazuya's come across the line and did not improve. Neither did Nixo by the looks of things. As we take a look further around, we can see Traro did not improve either. And then we have Adamus making his way around. We've got Doctor going around as well. Vulcan heading up towards turn 10. We're trying to find the drivers coming to the end of their qualifying lap. It is Nasanas here, the Honey driver. Can he improve? He does not improve, so that's a P6 at most for Nasanas. What about GMP? Well, he's making his way through turn 10 right now. We've then got Farstan, who's coming up through the ascent through 14 and 15. Gone a bit wide there through 14. You want a tighter entry line, and he's cost himself, I think, about a 10th as a result of it, as he now comes through 17 and up into 18. And what I think for Farstan, he's pushing very hard right now to try and close down 4 thousandths on GMP, the RTA driver. And I think he's worried, Farstan, that he's going to lose out on P7 as he comes to the timing line here. I think it's not going to be enough. No, he's down by 6 thousandths. Very close, however. We can see the Doctor comes across the line, does not improve. Then that is Kossi coming across the line now. He does not improve either. We've still got more drives to come on through, I believe. As we can see, Adamus is one of the many to come through. We've got GMP who's coming across that timeline now. And as GMP comes across, he does improve to P5 with 35.8. And Adamus does not improve. So GMP putting in a late performance there. But pole position goes to Prima Kazuya. It is time for race number 1. So as we pan down to the grid, we can see it is the case that Prima Kazuya taking that pole position with GTD's Trara alongside him. But watch out for the KRT combination of the Doctor and Adamus on the second row. Can they work some magic? And it's lights out and away we go for race 1 of Group C's round 5 as they all pull off the line. And we can see that Kazuya getting a good start there as they make their way down towards turn 1. Not too many people trying to go for a move early on, but we can see the Doctor versus his teammate Adamus as they come through the corners side by side. Neither one of them wanting to give way, wanting to be the lead driver as they come roaring through turn 2. And we can see the Doctor and Adamus still side by side as they come down. So there's a bit of fighting further down the field, but they settle it down as we see there's Speed Hunter trying to come through versus Vulcan. Vulcan having a disastrous start and dropping far down the field. He's dropped all the way down to turn 10 as we can see Speed Hunter there going on the offensive, and he's having to defend versus Nixo now as they come through. Meanwhile, a bit further up we can see Kossi getting in the battle with GMP. Kossi gaining multiple places at the start. He's already up to P5 here, and the Greeks trying to go around the outside of GMP through turn 8, and as they make their way on through we can see behind we've got Farstan having to go heavily defensive. GMP does make the move stick versus Kossi, and as they make their way towards turn number 10 right now, it is behind. There's been contact, Nasanas there with some contact on the back of what was Farstan. I think everybody's been ushered together. We're going to take a look back at that shortly, but as they make their way down towards turn number 11, it's the case that P5 and GMP under major pressure from Kossi. As we see, it's 3 wide into turn 11, and 3 wide there does not go well until one size fits all corners. Statue there in P9 has to back out. Farstan holds on to P9, and behind Speed Hunter losing places. We see Nixo, PL and Vulcan taking the fight back to the Mexican. It has been a very nip and tuck opening lap here, and our drivers showing that they immediately want to get off to a good start in this sprint race and are trying to get the pressure on before the field starts to open up a little bit as they all make their way through turn number 18 and into 19. But after one lap, it is Primus Kazuya leading by 6.5 tenths ahead of GTD's Traro 78, followed by the Doctor from KLT. Then it's the second KLT driver of Adamus. Meanwhile, we've got RTA's GMP holding on to P5, followed by HKLT's Kossi in P6. Farstan P7, then we've got Nasanas in P8. He's under pressure from Dachu here as they make their way into turn 1, but no way through at the moment. But you can see Dachu trying to find a way to get into the battle for P8. Here's Dachu in P9. We've got Vulcan in P10, Nixo PL in P11, and then Speed Hunter in P12 as they all come down into turn number 3. And this time nobody goes for an early move. Everybody keeps it nice and subtle and is just getting into the feel of things now. And of course, all of our drivers have just come from qualifying and they will be switched on in terms of going racing, but they will want to absolutely power around the circuit. But now they've got to worry about the fuel consumption and the tyre wear. And for those wondering, by the way, tyre wear is set to times 20, fuel consumption to times 9. The fuel's not too much of a factor in this sprint race, but the tyre wear will be definitely something our drivers need to readjust to once again, as they've all just been doing qualifying without any tyre wear present. And as they make their way into turn 10, we can see there in the rear of your picture, Speed Hunter going for the late move on Nixo. Nixo giving him the space to do so there, but I think it was the case of Speed Hunter with a half-committed move trying to make Nixo go deep by putting some pressure on as they make the way down through turn number 11. But meanwhile, we look back up towards our leader right now, and that is Kazuya leading as we look back from the Frenchman here, holding on to that position right now. And I think Trara at this point isn't really trying to put any pressure on, and instead just focusing on keeping there just behind, keeping within a second of Kazuya and looking to perhaps go on the push later on in this race. Remember, it's only 6 laps. We're on the end of lap 2 almost now, and it will be the case. We've got 4 more laps to go as they soldier their way through 19. But Kazuya does seem to have control of this race so far as he comes across that timeline, and he is the fastest man on circuit with the first lap that is not come from the grid. It's the first flying lap around the circuit at 37.4, so I think Kazuya is managing this one to a degree. But meanwhile, further back, we can see GMP has broken away from Kossi. Kossi under pressure here from Farstan. Farstan on the inside. There's been major contact between the two of them, and Kossi has been knocked to the sidelines there as they resume racing. The Sarnas there being cautious as they made their way through turn number 2, but the Sarnas gains the position, and Farstan got the move done, but I think there may be a steward's inquiry about that one given the fact there was some contact. Let's take a look back at what happened. So this was only moments to go, and what we're going to see here as they come charging down towards turn number 1, you'll see Farstan's got the overspeed here into the braking zone, and as they made their way in, it does look as though there's a little bit of contact, and Kossi just giving it a slight nudge onto the grass there. Good catch by Kossi to keep the car together, and Nasanas are taking evasive action. I think that may get a little bit of a warning towards Nasanas, or not Nasanas, to Farstan for the contact, but it was the end of the day. I don't think there was any malice meant by it, as we see Dachu here going for the move versus Vulcan, and as they make their way out of the corner, we can see in the rear view picture Speed Hunter getting a little bit of snap over still on the exit, but focusing on the battle for P9. Vulcan on the inside, Dachu on the outside into turn 11. There's a little bit of door to door. We see Speed Hunter now trying to come through on the inside through 12, and up into 13 they go here. There's only room for one, guys, as they make their way up through the corner. We can see Speed Hunter takes the position, and Dachu backs it off for the time being, recognising that there's places to be gained later in the race. You don't have to make it through the double right-hander of 14 and 15, the one place where you do not want to go too wide. I can tell you that, as we saw in Group F last night. 2 drivers going side by side through turn 14 is one of the most painfully slowest experiences at the Autopolis circuit as they make their way through 18 and into 19. But meanwhile, back up front, we can tell you that Kazuya is still leading, holding a gap of 9/10 versus Charo, and Charo is now starting to be pulled in slightly by KRT's the Doctor here. And what I think may be happening, I think the Doctor has been waiting to see whether Charo is going to try and put pressure on the Prima driver ahead or just run his race, and now the Doctor is reacting to this as we see Adamus there in P4 is falling back from our top 3 slightly, and GMP is keeping that gap of roughly 1.2 seconds to what is Farstan behind him, as Farstan, having made the move on what was Kossi, has now got Nasanas behind him, but he's got a comfortable gap of 2.1 seconds, which he doesn't have to worry about too much. As behind these guys, we can see Kossi now under a lot of pressure here as you ride on board with the HKRT driver as he makes his way through 7 and up into 8. Here's the situation whereby for Kossi 97, he'll be thinking about how can he get Vulcan, the WSR driver, to battle with Speed Hunter. Now, we know that Speed Hunter is very aggressive sometimes with regards to his moves. He likes to make moves, as he can see that he's going for it. We say about an into the hairpin, and there's contact between the 2 drivers there, as we can see that Vulcan is pushed very wide, and as a result now, as we look back to the exterior cameras, it is the situation where Dachu gets a 2-for-1 special as Speed Hunter completely lifts off there, recognising what he did. It was a bold move, it was a brave move, as we've got a yellow flag somewhere around the circuit. We've got a car off, and I think that may be, I think that's Kossi. I think Kossi's had a spin. What on earth has happened to the Greek? So this was only moments to go, and we were just seeing the battle between Speed Hunter and Vulcan, but focusing on the Greek driver here as we ride on board with them and look ahead. So coming down the hill here into turn 11, I suspect they've gone wide out of 11 here and sent the car into the gravel. As they've come down, the car's drifted, and it's the left-hand wheels that just have not given him the grip he's desired, and as a result, he has gone for a little bit of a merry-go-round in the grass. But I'm happy to hear that he's doing okay, and he's back racing now as we are on the penultimate lap, and we can see that is the case that our top 4 have spaced out a little bit now, as we see the Doctor's not able to close up to Chara. I think Chara has been given the word just to put a little bit more in and just hold off the Doctor at bay. But our top 4 staying this way, and we can see that GMP now starting to be reeled in by Farstan here, the AFC driver behind the RTA driver. And it is the case that Farstan does seem to be pulling out some time. As we look at GMP's last lap, it was a 38.7 versus what was from Farstan, a 38.3. So he pulled 5 tenths out of the Italian on that last one. There may have been just a mistake from the Italian, but I do think that Farstan does have a little bit more pace deeper into these sprint races right now as they make their way up towards turn number 10. And as the Canadian goes on the charge, what he's got to think about, of course, is how can he get well inside that slipstream zone through Sector 3 to get himself set for one of the only overtaking opportunities down into turn 1. Now, in terms of where we're expecting overtakes, it is the case that our overtakes, we see Nixo here versus Vulcan and also Speed Hunter all coming together out of the turn 10 hairpin. Our overtaking corners are typically turns 1, 3, 6, and also 10, and also the occasional overtake into 11. But that's normally where we expect to see the overtakes. Not much else around on the circuit. But again, I say that, and now Speed Hunter's going to try and prove me wrong as they go up into 12 here, and out of 12 into 13 to 14. Now rising up through 15 and into the left-hander of 16. They'll shortly come. No way through for Speed Hunter, who's definitely looking very fierce right now. As we go on to the final lap for our race leader, who's now got a 1.5 second gap over Charo. But look at the Doctor here. He's inside the slipstream zone. He's trying to close up on the final lap, but I think it's a little bit too late in the race right now. He'll try and put the pressure on and hope that Charo makes a mistake, but I think the GTD driver has got Doctor's number as he makes his way down. Meanwhile, Farstan, he's not able to close up sufficiently. He's a second back now, once again on GMP. Behind these guys, however, it has spaced out until you get to the battle for P9, and we see Nixo here right in the middle of that battle as we have Vulcan just ahead of him as they come roaring down towards turn number 3 once again. And there's all three of them make their way down. Nixo looks at a late move there, trying to feint a dummy there into turn 3, trying to get Vulcan to go deep. But Vulcan unfazed by, as we see Speed Hunter here, capitalising on the fact that Nixo went off a line briefly under braking as they made their way through turn 6. You can see how Speed Hunter, I think, feels he's got a lot more pace to unleash compared to the Polishman ahead of him. But it is the case that Nixo holds the track position as they make their way on through turn number 8 right now. And as they come through the corner, we look back here and we can see the WSR driver Vulcan is just being allowed to run off into that distance as we note that Nixo goes defensive here up into turn 10. Speed Hunter tries to go around the outside to inside under braking, going for the cutback line. I think it might be on for Speed Hunter as they come roaring down the hill now. Down towards turn number 11, we've got Nixo on the inside, Speed Hunter on the outside. It's GTMX versus the Polish team as they make their way down. The PRT team, and it's the case that PRT stays ahead as they make their way through turn number 12 and come roaring up the hill. But meanwhile, from one roaring charge to another, it is the case that Primus Kazuya will come around to take the win in race number 1. Behind him, Traro 78 from GTD, the Doctor from KRT, then it's Adamas P4, RTA's GMP in P5, Farstan from AFC in P6, Honey's Desanis in P7 in the end, and then we have got a 4.6 second window back to P8 man ATR Dachu here as he crosses the line for KRT, Vulcan P9 for WSR, and Nixo just holds off GTMX's Speed Hunter in the end. And then last but not least, it will be HKRT's Kossi 97, who with that mistake in the end out of turn 11 into 12 will be coming home last of our drivers here, but of course he will be starting in pole position for race number 2. So it's not all doom and gloom, and remember, every race tonight is worth the same value. So Kossi may have got the worst possible points in race number 1, but if he manages to bring home that win in race number 2, it could be worth some major points here as Kossi comes across the line. Congratulations to all of our drivers, but a special congratulations of course to our race winner Kazuya, the French driver from Team Prima. So a brilliant opening to the proceedings and a great opening race to whet the appetite here as we just look at our race results subject to any stewards' inquiries. It is the case that Primus Kazuya in the end winning by 1.7 seconds over GTD Traro 78, and then the Dr. R10 completing our podium with KRT. Outside the podium, rounding off our top 5 was the Damas from KRT and GMP from RTA, and then outside the top 5 completing the rest of our racing order was Farstan from Team AFC, followed by Nasanas from Team Honey, Dachu for Team KRT, and then we've got Vulcan for WSR, then Nixo PL there, the Polish driver representing PRT, Speed Hunter from GTMX in P11, and last but not least the HKRT driver of Kossi 97. The fastest lap being set on lap 2 by Primus Kazuya, and it did look as though with that 1:37.431 on the second lap, the first flying lap of the race, that Kazuya seemed to have that race under control. But now as we get ready to go racing once again, we'll likely have a 2 to 4 minute break before we move on to race number 2. And we can see there we've now had the switch over to the race number 2 settings. We're now going from the sprint to the feature of race 2, the strategic race. So 17 laps. Our race distance is multiplied by a factor of 3. We still have the same tyre wear, the same fuel consumption. So what can you expect? Well, in Group F last night, it was shown that the optimum strategy, if you're running in traffic, is a one-stop with fuel saving and tyre management. However, if you start at the front of the field or you find yourself in clear air and you're able to get yourself to the front of the field very rapidly, a two-stop can work. We saw the two-stop was very powerful in the hands of GTB's Damien92 in Group F, and could it be the case that some of our drivers are looking to experiment with the two-stop today, or will we see most of our drivers stick with the one-stop? My personal recommendation would be, if you're starting up front, you may as well go for the two-stop, because the fuel saving you've got to do the one-stop puts you a good amount of pace down, roughly 1 to 1.5 seconds off of your natural two-stop pace. But we'll wait and see what our drivers decide to do here as they all get readied up now to go racing. And whilst we are waiting, of course, other things to talk about. Well, we saw in particular a number of battles on the opening lap and also the second lap of the sprint race, and I think drivers were just getting used to battling with one another. Of course, some of these drivers will never have raced against one another before, some will have raced against one another in other series, and just everybody sort of trying to assert their dominance or assert their position in the pack as being that driver who wants to come through the field. And particularly for our winner in race number 1, Prima Kazuya, he'll have done that very well. But here we go then, ladies and gentlemen. It is time for race number 2, 17 laps. Who's going to be the winner? Let's find out. So as we pan down to the grid once again here for race number 2 with the reverse grid, of course, means it's Kossi on pole with Speed Hunter alongside him, and then it was the case that Nixo and Vulcan taking up that second row. But watch out for GTD Trara and Kazuya on that back row. How quickly can they come through the field? And it's away we go for race number 2 as all of our drivers look to get a good start here. And we can see in particular, it looks as though our midfield there in the battle for P3, GTMX Speed Hunter having a dire start as they come down towards turn 1. Nixo's going for a very early move, and Dachu as well, as they all coalesce together into turn 1. And it looks like Speed Hunter in the end has actually managed to pull out a P2 there in the run out of turn 1. That is a very impressive run to line. As we see there, we have the RTA driver of GMP trying to make the move for P6 into turn 3 as they come on through the corner here. And it's a situation where GMP He's got the move done, and now will it be the case that Nasanas loses out to Farstan as well as they come roaring up towards the hairpin? Farstan goes for the heavy break into the hairpin, and he gets the move done versus Nasanas. Trara up to P9 already, the Doctor P10, and we can see that Adamus in P11, and it's the case that Primus Kazuya's in P12 still as Trara tries to look for the move on the inside into turn 8 there versus Nasanas, but he can't find it as they all make their way up the hill towards turn number 10. Now as they make their way, and Kossi having a good start then, Speed Hunter as well as Dachu holds on to P3, but further back we can see it's the case that they're all concertinaing together here, and the Doctor having to be very careful not to tap the back of Trari too hard, otherwise both drivers could pick up damage to the car as they make their way down the hill in towards turn number 11, and nobody going for a move here early on. And I do think we're going to enter a situation where we get the fuel saving train, and who is going to be at the head of that train? Of course, well, it's Nasanas right now in P8 is the head of the rear train. Meanwhile, we've got Farstan there trying to find his way back past GMP as they make their way through turn at number 15 and into 16, and as they come roaring under the bridge here through turn number 17, everybody just being patient right now and sizing up the driver in front of them as they come roaring through. But you can see a little bit further back there, Traro going a bit wide into 18. He's got the Doctor all over him. But after one lap, it is Kossi 97 from HKRT leading by 5 tenths to the second over to the GTMX's Speed Hunter. ATR Dachu there in P3 for KRT, followed by Nixo PL for PRT behind him in P4. Vulcan in P5, followed by GMP in P6. Then it's Farstan in P7. Trara in P8, he's made the move versus Nasanas, and then we do have what is Nasanas in P9. Then we've got the Doctor in P10 racing for KRT. It's Adamus, the other one of our KRT drivers further down the pack, and then Primus Kazuya taking a very gradual approach to this race. He's not made any places on the opening lap since the reverse grid start, and I think for Kazuya, he's looking at the long game here. He's thinking about the one stop and doing as much fuel saving and tyre conservation as he possibly can as he tries to go around the outside of Adamus here through turn number 6. That's a very risky move, but I think that might be a message message to Adamas. Well, look, buddy, you're going to have to get a move on because I've got a bit more pace than you and I'm getting a bit bored of waiting. But will Adamas respond? As we can see here, making their way up the hill, we've got Nasanis versus Adamas as they make their way up the hill. The Doctor's already got through and Adamas makes the move as well. And Kazuya comes through here in a 3-for-1 special as they make their way out of the hairpin, and it looks like Nasanis there just out of position and out of pace as they make their way down towards turn 11 on the second lap of the race. And as they come charging down the hill once again, I think Nasanis at this point will be thinking to himself, okay, let the leaders clear the field for me, let them bring the rest of the field to me. Doesn't need to fight the leaders right now, although he'd love to, of course. I think for Nasanis, he just needs to be slightly patient and wait for that opportunity. As meanwhile it's the case that Kossi in P1 is trying to break away from Speed Hunter here and is gradually making it work. I think he's in a bit of a situation where Speed Hunter's just able to linger there in the slipstream as they make their way across the line, completing lap number 2 onto lap number 3. And further back, we can see that it's P4 backwards now that really is the rest of the train, with Nixo here as we ride on board with the PRT driver, the Pitbull Racing driver, coming down towards turn number 1 once again. And you can see getting onto the grass slightly there under braking. And Vulcan, I think, is trying to use him as a fuel saver and not trying to put in too much pace, trying to manage that fuel, because as we now ride on board with the Turkish driver, you can see how GMP and also Fastan are very close behind him. And this is one of those awkward situations to take you through what's going through the minds of our drivers right now. They're all racing to a predetermined pace, or their own pace in terms of their minds. So they will know to do a one-stop, which is, this is the pace we're expecting for a one-stop, or the style of racing. All these drivers right now will be thinking to themselves, okay, I need to do a certain lap time, and I need to short shift at certain points, use certain gears. But of course, when they come up behind a driver who is offering them slipstream, but they get too close to that driver, they may find that driver ahead of them is driving too slowly, and as a result that is costing them time effectively in the race, and they'll then get through. And you can see that. Look at Fastan here, he's looked for the move on GMP, a tiny bit of contact into turn 10, and particularly over the apex, over the hill, has meant that GMP's been knocked forward, but you can see Fastan has backed off there, and that's the problem. As these guys get closer together and the paces start to unveil themselves, you'll start to see 1 or 2 drivers in the train who want to move forward. They'll want to set the pace of the train a little bit higher, and they'll be trying to get the guy ahead of them to go faster. If not, they've got to make an overtake, or accept that their total race time now is predicted to get longer because of the fact they can't find their way through. And that's what I think Fastan's having to do right now. He's having to accept a reality. As we see that, I think Nixo's had a mistake, because Nixo's got it very wrong. We can see Fastan on the inside here of GMP, and Vulcan's backed up behind the Polish with a header who cuts across the corner there. As we see GMP goes defensive into 19, and as a result, this is going to be a drag race down towards 1 right now. It's Fastan on the inside versus GMP on the outside. The two of them are side by side into the braking zone. We can see contact door to door there as GMP goes defensive and Fastan backs off. As we see behind there, that was Traro making the move versus the Doctor for P8 as they make their way down towards turn number 3 now. And this pack from what is P4 all the way back to P11, and we can see Nasanis just at the rear of the picture there on the lonesome P12 right now. It is the case that this pack, they're all trying to sort themselves out. They're all trying to say they've got a little bit more pace, or trying to get the leader of the pack to go a little bit faster. And you can see how they all come together onto braking into the first of our 2 major hairpins at turn number 6, and this is a very uncomfortable situation. And remember, it's this man who we're right on board with right now, Nixo PL, who determines the pace of this train. If he wants to go slower, so long as the drivers around him aren't able to find a way through, he can set the pace to become slower. And we can see GMP here coming out of the slipstream. He looks at a move on Vulcan, and as they make their way through turn number 10, GMP takes the P5. He takes over Vulcan, gets a little bit sideways coming out the corner, and I think Vulcan backs off to P7. He also lets Fastan through here. And I think what the Turkish one is thinking, okay, I've seen that Fastan has caused some contact on the back of GMP as Nixo goes wide out the corner and drops down to P6. He ran wide out of turn 11 there, and Vulcan on the outside to inside now. He's going to try and go all the way round. This is very daring stuff as we see behind Prima Kazuya doing the same as well versus Adamas there, and Kazuya still side by side with Adamas who turns 16. Now that you never see is 2 drivers going over the brow of the hill of 16 side by side, and Kazuya's looking for another move here. They're 3 wide through turn 18, and as they come through the corner, goodness me, Kazuya is absolutely going to charge now. I think he's seen where they're all starting to squabble and fight one another, that this is his opportunity to scythe his way through the field. And how one of these drivers has not been sent to the grass, I do not know. As we see, he goes to the move versus Nixo now into P1. The Doctor tries to follow through as well. Keep it clean, guys. My goodness, this is crazy stuff as they make their way down towards turn number 3, and we can see the Doctor trying to make that move on Nixo. He's got it done, and in behind GTD's Traro there, stuck in P10 for the time being and not really making any progress. He's going backwards, he's regressing as they come through in towards turn 6. As they go into the corner, we can see Nix over there with a little bit of snap understeer under braking, the rear end cutting loose, and I think that brake bias might be starting to take its toll in terms of having it towards the rear. We can see that Nix are really struggling under braking into the hairpin, and Traro had to take a little bit of evasive action. As meanwhile, we look up to the head of this pack, and it is RTA's GMP who's broken away with Fastam right now. As behind, we do see there Nixo versus what is Traro, and Traro going for the move, and Adamas coming through as well, as Nixo, I think, has hit the cliff in terms of the tyres as they make the way out of 10 down towards 11, and as they come roaring down at this point, I think it will be the situation right now. We'll see Nixo fall backwards towards Nasanas very shortly. Now, of course, we do have some race leaders. We haven't forgotten about those guys, but look at them here. Here is Kossi, our race leader right now, still holding a gap of 9/10 of a second over Speed Hunter, and then we have got Dachu here from KRT in P3, who is a further 1.4 seconds back. Not really gaining at the moment, just falling a little bit way off the leaders. But meanwhile, we've got GMP here in P4 as we see behind. Kazuya goes for another move here versus Vulcan as they go into 18, and Kazuya, the man on a mission right now and unleashing the pace. As I think Vulcan might have an indicator on that. I think Vulcan's coming into the pit. No, he's not going into the pits. So Vulcan did have his indicator on. I thought we did see an indicator. Perhaps that was just a bit of a light. And he's backed off there, letting what is the Doctor come through. And Traro comes roaring through as well here. And perhaps the Turkish driver's had enough of fighting and wants to race to a pace rather than trying to hold on to position right now. But it does look uncomfortable for the Turkish driver, who's not got any damage on the car. So he's not nursing a problem with the car, but he doesn't feel happy with the pace of the guys around him right now. He's letting them through to focus on managing his race a little bit more, one would presume there, as they make their way through turns 4 and 5 and up into 6 again. Will we see Adamas go for the lunge here? No, he doesn't go for it. He waits patiently, and meanwhile, it is the case that further up the field in P4 right now, GMP, you have to say, the RTA driver here, doing a good job of taking Fastam along with him, but he is also managing that gap, and he's starting to reel in Dachu ahead of him right now. That gap has come down from 2 seconds on the last lap to 1.7 so far, and I think the Italian here, and we saw this with Momo, his teammate in Group F, the RTA team seems to have a car that works very well for the feature race. It seems to protect itself and come alive in the second half of the stint, and that is what GMP is trying to do right now. He's trying to up the pace and hunt down Dachu, who is most likely starting to feel the crunch of that tyre wear and also the fuel coming out the car. But meanwhile, further back, you have to say that with these two now making their breakaway towards the leaders, Kazuya has already put 9/10 of a second between himself and the Doctor behind, and Kazuya here, I imagine, will be setting the fastest lap very soon, or the fastest lap on this iteration of the circuit, this lap on lap 6, compared to all the other drivers, because he is absolutely bolting it from the stable right now and doing everything he can to bring it fast and to him. As meanwhile, further back, we can see it's the situation where Vulcan right now has got Adamas behind him still, and it looks like the Turkish driver's under pressure, and there could be a move on as we see Dachu into the pits on lap number 6. Now that is a very early pit stop from the Polish driver as they make their way down towards turn 1 here. We've got Vulcan on the outside, Adamas on the inside. KRT takes the inside versus WSR, and I think Parks on the apex. Vulcan looking for the cutback there and hoping that Adamas will go deep on the brakes, but no such luck as Adamas parks it on the apex very cleanly and now goes racing once again. But to see the pit stop and Dachu this early on, he's low on fuel, and that's why he's in the pits. He's got no fuel left. As we see Nixo versus Nasanas in, Nasanas makes his initial move. There was a little bit of contact there, and Nasanas backs it off, but Dachu really struggling for fuel, and we'd expect our drivers to be pitting on laps 8 and 9. Lap 8 to go for the undercut. Lap 9 is the traditional lap here, because if you go that one extra lap towards the end, you have a lot of tyre wear come the 17th lap of the race. As we see here, Nixo versus Nasanas, and Nixo really struggling for grip through turn 8. Nasanas is going to be looking for that move very soon, I imagine, as they make the way out through turn 9 and up towards 10. No such way this time, but Nixo definitely hitting a clip. In fact, he's gone very deep. Nasanas looks to the inside. He shows the room to Nixo. Oh, goodness me, Nixo, they're getting it very wrong on the power, and the Honey driver almost being collected by him, and I think Nixo's backed it off now. I think he feels okay. That was a little bit dangerous. Let's back it off, and Nixo goes wide there. It's definitely the case. We'll be expecting a pit stop from Nixo in the near future. But I should clarify, by the way, Dachu pitted on lap 6, not on lap 7. So as a result, that could be a potential 2-stop from Dachu to make the car work. But if so, that is a shocking surprise, because we'd expect him to go a bit longer, as GMP is now being reeled in by Fastam, and you can see Kazuya has closed up to the pair of these guys very rapidly. As Fastam right now, they go on to lap 8, and we can see Speed Hunter into the pits on lap 7. The Mexican driver is going for the undercut, and I think he's almost out of fuel as well in terms of laps. So we're getting some rather oddball strategies occur right now. I think some drivers have just taken too much fuel out of the car, and it'll be a good time to look at the telemetry data. Now, our race leader, I reckon, will have to pit come the end of this lap. He will not be able to go on to the 9th lap based on that fuel remainder. If he does, he's going to be squirting the fuel very gradually into the engine. But meanwhile, GMP has got got a lot of fuel remaining by comparison, and those tyres are looking very strong. Much like Fastdown, it's got a little bit less fuel, but the tyres are in good condition. Kazuya, however, has got the best fuel out of the top 4 right now, and those tyres have been heavily worn. Looking at that rear left in particular, he's had to work hard in the power zones, and meanwhile it's the Doctor who's on a similar amount of fuel and slightly better tyre condition. The Doctor has been protecting the car a bit more, and then we have got GTD's Traro here who has similar fuel to the two guys in front of him and similar tyre wear, and then we have the KRT driver of Damas here who's on a bit less fuel compared to the drivers ahead of him. That could be a problem with regards to his pit stop, as meanwhile we've got WSR's Vulcan here really heavy battered on the front tyres. We can see that front left in particular has opened up considerably, and that is why I think he's been letting drivers through. He's been struggling with that front left, and particularly for these right-handers, this medium speed sweeper right-hander turn 11 into 12, those two corners are going to hurt that left tyre massively now as they make the way on through. He's going to be getting a lot of understeer. Nasanas meanwhile has done a lot of fuel saving, it should be said. That could enable him to close up to the field after the pit stops. We've then got Nixo PL here who will be pitting very shortly, and look at the front tyre wear on Nixo's car. That is horrendous, particularly that he's got more wear on that front right than he has that front left. Now how has he managed to achieve that? I'm not 100% sure, ladies and gentlemen, but that is some achievement, as we can see it. Speed Hunter meanwhile on the fresh tyres right now, and Dachu as well, but he's got a lot less fuel. I think Dachu's on a 2-stop compared to Speed Hunter, as we do see Kossi is into the pits in the lead, and we've got our first round of 1-stop pit stops here, what we believe are the proper 1-stop pit stops, although Speed Hunter may be going for the 2-lap undercut. As we can see, GMP right now is carrying on around there. We're going to see where Kossi comes out from all of this very shortly. Now where is Speed Hunter? Speed Hunter's making his way out the final corner across that timeline. Now can Speed Hunter use this to jump ahead of the field? This is going to be very close. He's jumped ahead of all the drivers who pitted, so Speed Hunter right now, if this is the case, if he is going for a 2-lap undercut compared to the rest of the field, this is going to be incredible from Speed Hunter. And Dachu's come through behind him. Nixo's in the pits, they've just fueled the car. And Fastan has been reeled in by Kazuya. Kazuya doing the extra fuel saving. It means that Kazuya's right there behind the Canadian, and Kossi has given himself a nice amount of space to Fastan. It's a 2-second gap, but you have to imagine that Dachu has got to pit again, as has Speed Hunter, surely, unless Speed Hunter is going to really back the car off towards the end in terms of fuel and tyre use, because right now Speed Hunter is quote-unquote your race leader when all the pit stops are completed, we believe, but it is a situation where for Speed Hunter right now, how long can he go on those tyres before they start to open up? Because remember, we are now on lap number 9. We are at the halfway point of the race effectively, and Speed Hunter pitted on lap 7 on a 1-stop. Well, we believe it's a 1-stop. If Speed Hunter's doing this, it is going to be something magical if we see it happen, as we believe that GMP will now pit from P1, as he does indeed. He comes in, as does the Doctor, and also Traro for GTD, and we've got Adamas coming on through. We believe he is going to pit as well, so the KRT drivers decided to all go for the same strategy here. Vulcan as well, and we've also got Nasanas, so this means Speed Hunter is now making his way through. Our quote-unquote race leader here coming on through, as I believe we've got a driver right down the back of the field. That's Nixo after his pit stop. He's all the way down here, but meanwhile as we look back up, we can see it's the case that Speed Hunter making his way out the final corner here. Now where will he emerge compared to everyone around him as he makes his way across? The Nasanas doing the greatest fuel saving of everybody on that opening stint. Well, Speed Hunter takes the lead, and then we can see that Kossi here is in the slipstream of what is Dachu, and we can see at the rear view picture that's GMP coming out in P6. So we can see that Kazuya has jumped GMP, as behind them the Doctor versus Trara, they go side by side into one after both emerging from the pits. The Doctor holds on to lead for the time being, but will it be the case that the Doctor feels the taste of his own medicine, as Trara would like to serve it up to him as they make their way down towards turn 3? No such thing. The Doctor remains in control as he holds his way through turn 3. But this is how the pit stops have worked out. We can see that Kazuya has effectively jumped with the earlier pit stop on lap 8 compared to lap 9. He has jumped to GMP, and he's now in that P5 position on the offensive versus Fastan. But the big question mark will be, how much time can Dachu hold Kossi up for? Because Kossi right now will feel that he needs to fly. He needs to find his way on through. And as they make their way up towards turn number 10, on the 10th lap, we can see here, no way through for Kossi right now. But Kossi as well could be doing some fuel saving here. He may be back in the car. He may be back in the car, if I should say, to just give himself a bit more fuel towards the end of the race to hold off any late movers. But meanwhile, Nasanas here, we ride on board our P9 driver as he comes through turn 10, and we can see Nasanas, the one who did the most fuel saving of everybody on the opening stint, has got Adamas behind him now, and Vulcan as well. So it's the case, it has given Nasanas 2 places back, but he is the best part of 6 seconds off of Trara ahead of him here, so he is feeling the pinch of the fact that he has lost the overall run to the midfield right now. He's really battling for the last positions in the top 10. But then again, Nasanas right now could prove to be the roadblock and the cork in the bottle as a result, as Adamas and Vulcan are both both got to find their way through. But meanwhile, back up front, I can tell you that whilst this is going on, it is the case that Speed Hunter is absolutely bolting it right now. He's trying to break away, and I think for Speed Hunter, he may be worried about a potential two-stop as his statue. As we see, Speed Hunter gets it very wrong and goes wide at turn 1. And as a result, now all the work he's put in, oh goodness me, and right across the path of Doctor. And Doctor has been collected by Speed Hunter there. And as a result, it is the case that a Doctor with engine damage is now going to have to pit, and the Doctor's race is effectively over in the battle for the lead. And that is a nightmare. Let's see if Speed Hunter's got damage to the car. He's got damage to the right-hand tyre, but nothing else. So Speed Hunter there getting away with very light damage, and meanwhile the Doctor's race, well, it's in absolute disrepair. And this really opens up right now, because we can see that Kossi, who is leading the pack that's chasing Dachu going deep, and we can see that Kossi backing off the throttle. There's contact there, and we can see that Farstan and also Kazuya and Jimpy all backing into him right now as they drag their way down towards turn 11. And it is the case that Kossi has to go defensive. Farstan can see now that this race has opened up massively as they make the way through turn number 12 here. Now the Greek driver just looking to go racing up through turn number 13 and 14 once again, but it does look as though right now it's anybody's guess out of these four who are going to be the winner, or could Dachu pull off a surprise here and surprise us all by having enough to go to the end after pitting on lap number 6. It is going to be a very interesting race at this point onwards, as we've seen one of our favourites get knocked out due to an incident, and now it's the case that we do have our winner from race 1 still there, as Dachu makes his way onto the racing line as rapidly as possible here to try and get out the toe. Farstan looking for the mover. He's building up the speed into turn 1. He's not quite good enough, or as he goes to move under braking. Kossi versus Farstan, they came together in race 1 into this corner. This time neither one of them's been knocked wide, and as they make their way down towards 3 here, Farstan's got the position, but can he hold on to it here? It looks so he can for the time being, and now he will try and get past Dachu as quickly as possible and put the Polishman between himself and the Greek and try to break away, I'm sure, as they make their way through turn number 5 and into 6. And we can see Kazuya going for the late move versus Kossi. Kossi opening the door, not expecting Kazuya to go for it, but Kazuya's made it work here, and the Frenchman has identified an opportunity. He snagged it, and now he's going to go after our P2 man as rapidly as possible as they come roaring through turn number 8 and up the hill towards turn number 10. We do have a car in the pits. I believe that is the Doctor in the pits right now. I'm just looking out my commentary box window and can confirm it is him. But meanwhile, our battle for the lead, we have also got there Traro, who's just set the fastest lap of 38.590. The Italian is also getting into this fight. And further back, we've got Nasanas, who is still holding off Adamas and Vulcan as well, as they make their way down the hill towards 11. But looking back towards our leaders right now, we're riding on board. We can see the Farstan go for the move into turn number 13. And as they make their way through, Farstan with too much momentum, losing out massively as Kazuya now makes it too wide through 16. And as they come up the hill, we can see Kazuya goes onto the grass. Kazuya's off into the gravel, and it means that he's lost all what he's gained, as behind GMP now tries to hold off Traro, who's trying to go all the way round. And meanwhile, Dachu is proving to be absolutely resolute as he comes into the pits for his second stop. So it is the case that Kossi right now is battling with Farstan for the lead, and GMP and Traro are right there. And Kazuya, with just one misplaced opportunity, has dropped down the field there. The stewards are going to have their hands towards GMP, goes deep into turn 1. The tyre wear is picking up now, and with only 5 more laps to go, including this one, Kossi looks to move for the lead. He can't find it as they make their way on through. We are going to see a different winner in race number 2. That I'm sure of now, with Kazuya making that one mistake, albeit he's still got 5 laps to catch up. And if these guys continue to battle the way they are going to be running somewhat in the region of 1 to 2 seconds off the pace of the chasing pack from P5 behind. It's not over yet. But if anything's certain now, we have got a dramatic race on our hands, and it could be anyone out of these 4 who could win it right now, as Farstan does seem to be trying to make the breakaway here from turn 8 up into 10. But will he be able to make the break? That is the big question, as Kossi right now will be thinking to himself, okay, we've seen what happened when Farstan battled with Kazuya. Now it's the case, we've got to get ahead in this one. And I think, meanwhile, for Traro, who will be really looking at this one with both eyes open, we know that Traro is one of the fastest drivers in this field today, and perhaps the fastest out of the 4 battling for for the lead here. Charo will be thinking to himself, okay, I've got a huge opportunity here. Just close them down one by one. Don't do anything stupid, because otherwise we could end up seeing another instant. And Charo right now, you can see, is really building up that momentum as they come through turn number 17 and up into 18. He is closing Kossi down, and he'll be looking for the move into turns 1 or 3 on the next lap, I'm sure, as they make their way out of 18. It's a good run out by Charo. He's already closing that gap up as he now has the slipstream to take him down to 1. Kossi does not, as Faststand has just opened up another gap. We see Charo building that momentum, and as they make their way down towards turn 1, Charo looking for the move. He's not close enough. He's going to wait for turn 3. He's going to try and get a good run. He nails the apex there, but Kossi does a good job as well. And as they make their way out of the corner, we can see that Charo is not able to close up, as Kossi's now back almost into the slipstream of Faststand here. It is a situation where our top 3 are fighting, and GMP is starting to fall back a little bit. Kazuya, meanwhile, is closing up again. He's on a charge right now as Kazuya. He's got the gap to himself for GMP down to 2.6 seconds, and he's trying to close up as Nasanas here is still holding off what is Adamus behind him as he makes his way through turn number 6. It's a situation right now where WSR Vulcan just falling backwards very gradually, and this race is open up. And can Adamas find a way through for P6? Only time will tell. As meanwhile we look back up to our battle for P2, and we can see Kossi holding off Charo rapidly at this point in time, but we see him go a little bit deep there into that hairpin, not able to hold as much momentum, and this is where Charo will be looking to strike, but try and return, going out onto the grass on exit there. Now as they come through the right-hander at turn number 11 and up into 12, Charo goes a little bit wide on exit, puts 2 wheels up onto the grass just beyond the curve there, but he keeps it together. Charo pushing to the limit here, trying to find a way to stay as close as possible. He wants to be within 4/10 of a second come the exit of 18, so that way he can go on the offensive versus Kossi even closer if he can. And we can see here as they make their way through, we ride on board with our P2 man of HKLT, Kossi 97, as they make their way through 18. Now can Kossi nail the exit? He goes a little bit deep, and this is what Charo will be looking for. This is the opportunity. The gap's already down to 3/10 as they cross that timing line, down to 2.5, down to 2/10. Charo's on the offensive here. He's building up the speed. Kossi holds the racing line here. Charo looks at a move. He goes straight into turn 1, but he's not able to beat Kossi on the brakes here. And Kossi going as late as he dare try as they make the way through 2 and in towards 3 right now. But Charo looking for every which way through and looking menacingly large in the rearview mirror of the Greek as they make the way through turn number 3. And he's getting ever closer, corner by corner. And remember, with all this heavy braking that Kossi's doing, he is loading those front tyres up with additional wear, and that's only going to hurt him even more come the final lap of the race. We've got 3 laps to go, including this one, and we can see that right now it's the case that Faststand is being bought time by Kossi by simply managing his pace. He's got a second lead over Kossi, but behind Kossi it is Charo, who is looking very menacing, the GTD driver, as they all come up into the turn 10 hairpin for the 15th time of asking. Behind them, GMP is being closed up by Kazuya here. Kazuya, of course, the driver who we thought would be making the charge for a lead, but that instant between himself and Charo coming out of turn 16, seeing Kazuya relegated back to P5 by running wide into that gravel at 17, and now Kazuya will be coming back with a vengeance, trying to get himself into P4 as a minimum come the final lap. Behind them, I can tell you that Nasanas is still holding off Adamus right now, and behind these guys we do have Vulcan, who has dropped a bit further back. He's dropped to 1.7 seconds back, as it is the case that meanwhile Nixo in P9, he has got Speed Hunter and Dachi trying to catch up to him gradually over the remainder of the race. But as they make their way on through around lap 15, we can see our leaders are coming to the end of the 15th lap. They go on to the penultimate lap right now, and it is the same as before. Faststand holds the second lead, but meanwhile Kossi versus Trano, it is the case the gap is even closer. Surely the Italians got to go for a move. This is last ditch as they make the way into turn 1. Charo goes to the move early here, heavy on the brakes. Kazuya at the same, he goes to the move versus GMP, and Kazuya's up into P4, Charo up into P2. It's the 2 fast movers now who are trying to gain positions right at the end. Now will Charo have to defend from Kossi into 3? No, he doesn't, so it is a gap of 9/10. He's got 1.5 laps to take on the leader. Can he bring on the lead, or will the Canadian prove too much for him as they make their way through the turn 6 hairpin? We can see it's the GTD driver who's doing everything he can right now to try and close down the Canadian, to try and deny Canada its win in Group C as they make their way through turn number 8 right now. Team AFC will be begging for Faststand to just raise the pace a little bit more, but meanwhile Charo from GTD, it'll be GTD in his ear right now shouting, push, give it everything you've got. And as they make their way through turn number 10, Charo is closing our leader down rapidly as they make their way out of the hairpin. He's well inside the slipstream zone now, building up that speed speed down towards 11. There won't be a move this time around on this lap, but you can imagine if he's this close, if not even closer, coming out the final sector, Charo's going to be looking very menacing onto that final lap. Behind them, I can tell you that Kazuya right now is gradually close up to Kossi, but the gap is 2.4 seconds and closing. Will he be able to bring it down come at the final lap? And then further down, we can see that Nasana's still holding on to that P6 for the time being. And in the battle for P9, Dachu versus Nixo, I can tell you that Dachu has got the move done for P9 into the turn 10 hairpin versus Nixo on this lap. But it is the final lap as they make their way out turn 19. They go across the timing line, and it is Farstan leading ahead of Charo. But Charo's had a very strong run. We can see that Farstan goes defensive into one, but it's a long way down to the corner here. Farstan is going to try and hold the inside, but Charo sweeps round before the braking zone. And I think that is the move for the lead done by Charo as they come out of turn 1. They come into turn 2. Will there be a return from the Canadian? We can see that Charo going defensive initially here, but Farstan I do not think has got enough in the tank to be able to make the move as they make their way through 3 into 4 here. And Kossi now with a 2-second gap over Kazuya will be just looking to bring the car home in P3. He won't want to do anything crazy at this point. He'll just want to bring home that podium position. We can see that Kazuya here doing everything he can. He's got GMP behind him, is 1.2 seconds back and falling backwards gradually. But as they all make their way through into turns 8 into 10 right now, I can tell you that Sarnas has broken away from Adamas. The gap has opened up to 8 tenths of a second, and as a result, in fact, it opens up a little bit more coming out to turn 8. And as a result, I think these drivers will finish as they currently stand as they make their way on round and up the hill into 10. Behind them, Vulcan falling off of the pace of the WSR driver, and I think just contemplating the races ahead rather than the race now as he makes his way through that hairpin. And further down, it does look as though Dachu has broken away as Speed Hunter has passed Nixo PL as well. Nixo in P11 and then the Doctor in P12. But meanwhile, looking back to our leaders as they come through turns 14 and 15, it has been a dramatic race, but one driver has made it to the front of the field on the final lap, and he's not let go since making the move for the lead into turn 1. And as he comes through the final corner, it will be GTD's Charo 78 from Italy who takes the win in race number 2 of round 5 of Group C. Behind him, Farstan in P2 for AFC, Kossi 97 from HKRT in P3, Kazuya from Prima in P4, GMP from RTA in P5, Nasanas from Honey in P6, KRT's Adamas P7, Vulcan from WSR in P8, ATR Dachu there representing KRT. He's holding on for P9 right now. We'll just see as he makes his way up into 18. The best part of 18 seconds off of our lead pack as they make their way on through, and I think Dachu's just got enough in the tank here to hold off Speed Hunter come the finish line. As we see Dachu there pulls to the inside, he crosses in P9, Speed Hunter from GTX in P10, Nixo PL from PRT in P11, and it's a further 10 seconds down to the driver who I think will want to go charging over to the pit box of Speed Hunter afterwards. It will be the Dr. R10 who finishes in P12 from KRT. A brilliant race, but there can only be one winner. Congratulations to all our drivers, but a special congratulations to GTD's Charo 78 from Italy. Well, I don't think we could have predicted that race 2 was going to be full of that much drama and battling all the way through. But here are your race results subject to any stewards' inquiries, ladies and gentlemen. GTD's Charo 78 taking the win in the end by 1.3 seconds over GTCQ's Farstan representing Team AFC. And then our podium being rounded off by HKRT Kossi and 97. Outside of the podium, we have Kazuya from Prima and GMP from RTA completing our top 5. And then wrapping up the rest of the field, Nasana 69 from Honey, then Adamas from KRT, Vulcan from WSR, Dachu from what is ATR and also representing what is KRT in P9, Speed Hunter from GTMX in P10, completing our top 10, then Nixo PL representing PRT in P11, and last but not least, KRT's the Dr. R10, who set the fastest lap on lap 14, the 1:37.579. A brilliant lap there, but of course the Doctor ruined what could have been a bigger result if it were not for the contact between himself and Speed Hunter out of 1. But right now, it is the case that we are going to have approximately a 10-minute break before we get underway with qualifying 2. So expect us to be back at what will be 19:33 based on the clock in the top right corner of the broadcast screen there. So that is 33 minutes past 7 this evening, and we'll be going once again for qualifying session number 2. We're going to take a breather for just 5 minutes, so we are going to be back at roughly 19:28 for the build up to the second half of the racing tonight. But until then, don't go anywhere too quickly, ladies and gentlemen. Get yourself some liquid refreshment, take that toilet break if you need it, but make sure you come back, because when you do, we've got plenty more racing ahead for you. We'll catch you shortly. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, well, we are back with 5 minutes to go until the second half of the proceedings tonight. Now, if you're wondering why we briefly had a bit of a blue screen whilst we were waiting, it was just because we were updating our spreadsheet tracker in terms of the results from tonight to give you an idea of how our drivers are performing at the moment. But before we do that, it's good to be back, of course, after a brief break, and we're just going to say hello to you guys and girls who have joined us since the start. So we have also got here in the chat, we've got Zizu, who is supporting Nasanas for Team Honey. We've also got Insane Ghost, who's saying hello there, and it's good to see Insane Ghost once again. We've got Pierce Goat supporting Duchu, and we've also got Mr. Peartree7, who there is saying Forza Traro, go GTD. Indeed, excuse me, the GTD driver doing a very good job so far, with the P2 and the P1 in races 1 and 2 respectively. We've also got Rocco Scaraskia there, who is supported GTD's Trara as well. I've probably butchered your surname, by the way, Rocco. I do apologise if I've got it wrong. We also have here confirmation that in the top split in Group A, the pole lap was a 35.003. That is absolutely phenomenal. And we can also see BFR TV there saying hello and saying good luck for the races and the broadcaster. Appreciate that, BFR. And we can also see there we have Leonis saying supporting Nixo. We've also got GTD's Black White Robbie supporting Traro and saying Traro is on fire. We've got also Ririzos saying hello everyone, go Nasanas, go Honey. We've also got Wojciech and Noak there, who is enjoying the racing by the looks of things. And we can also see a little bit further down there, we've got GTD's Tovarelli 82 supporting Traro. We've got Eric La Rochelle supporting Fast Stand there for Team AFC. We've also got there Mudlu Bazdas, probably got that wrong, saying Vulcan for the win. And we've also got Nicolo Farina saying Traro. We've got a lot of GTD fans in here, a lot of Traro fans in particular, which is fantastic to see. And it does look as though Traro has captured the hearts of a good number of spectators. And to give you a quick update right now in terms of how our drivers are performing after 2 races, what I can tell you is that our best performer so far has been the Italian of Traro, seen here currently waiting to go back out of the circuit again, with second place in race number 1 and first place in race number 2. That means he is currently leading Group C over the course of 2 out of 4 races tonight. Our second place man as it currently stands is Prima Kazuya, who I think will be kicking himself for what happened in race number 2. Having picked up the win in race 1 and a P4 in race number 2, he'll be looking now to try and get himself onto the podium for the last 2 races. Started off with the all-important qualified session, and then P3 as it currently stands is the Canadian of Farstan. Farstan having 2 very good performances, consistent performances, a 6th in race 1 and a 2nd in race number 2. But he's got to watch out because RTA's GMP and also the driver of Kautia Damas are both chased after P4 and P5 respectively in the scores. Now, in terms of what the scores mean and everything along those lines, it will be the case that the scores get fed into the master results, which will be published on the official GT Fusion website, which you'll be able to see that table at gtfusion.com. If you look it up in Google, if you just type GT Fusion, you will see the website will be the first result returned. So that table will be updated after the proceedings and all the stewarding verdicts, and it'll be the case that will probably take somewhere in the region of a week or so before that is released after the racing tonight. But looking to the now rather than the future, what have we got coming up? Well, we have a qualifying session coming up, which will be a situation whereby our drivers will only have 6 minutes to set their laps. Now, you're probably thinking at this point, well, why 6 minutes? Why not another 15 minutes compared to qualified session 1? Well, the thing is, when you have 15 minutes of the qualified session, at a circuit such as Autopolis, where you need every little bit of rubber down the circuit to help you get that additional track grip, but also on top of that, every lap to get yourself ready for that ultimate lap come the end of your qualified session, it's the case you have a lot of time, you're allowed to make mistakes, and you're allowed to take it relatively easy at the start of the qualified session. Meanwhile, it will be the situation that in the second qualified session with only 6 minutes, so effectively under half of that 15 minutes, you've now only got 3 qualifying laps. 2 if you make a mistake on 1 lap and need to give yourself some more space or jump into the pits. And as a result, with only a limited number of laps available, the pressure is on to get pole. And the idea behind this is it can shake up the order. Some drivers will be experts at time trial style qualifying, where they'll have an extended period of time to find that ultimate lap. Other drivers can just switch the car on immediately on a single hot lap and get the ultimate lap, and that's what the change in the qualifying session time will do. That qualifying will of course inform the grid for race number 3, which will be another sprint race, another 6 laps of the Autopolis circuit, and then the results of race 3 will be reversed for the purposes of setting the grid for race number 4, our second feature race of tonight. So that's what we've got coming up. We should be getting underway within the next minute or so, I believe, but we are just waiting for that confirmation right now. And the man we're looking at, by the way, I should really introduce him, is WSR's Aurelius, who is the driver who wasn't able to join us at the start of proceedings tonight due to a personal difficulty where he wasn't able to get to the circuit, but he's finally arrived at the Autopolis circuit, and we can see the WSR driver here making his way on round. Now, in terms of introducing Aurelius, of course, a well-loved and respected member of the GT Fusion racing community, and it is the case that we're now very happy to see him. We're going to have all 13 drivers out on the circuit, and he is ranked 12th out of our 13 drivers in this lobby with an ELO of 1,260.00. It will be the case that Aurelius today will be battling uphill against what should be effectively stronger drivers, but of course this is a great opportunity for him to show his skill, his capacity and his mettle. But we'll wait to see. Of course, he'll be the second of our two WSR drivers. He'll be joined by, of course, his teammate Vulcan, who's been racing since the start, and you can see the WSR driver Vulcan here as Aurelius comes into the pits. So that's what we have to introduce there. Good luck to Aurelius, of course, the Frenchman. We look forward to seeing how he gets on. But whilst we are waiting out, I'm just checking in with our central control stewards right now. We are not hearing anything with regards to things proceeding behind schedule right now. Of course, we are a couple of minutes late due to the situation whereby we had a slight delay because we're trying to get some drivers to join, but it does look as though that right now we are almost ready to move forward. So we are just counting down for that potential qualifying session. And in the meantime, whilst we are waiting, of course, feel free to let me know what's been your favourite moment of the racing tonight so far, or if you just want to simply give your thoughts to the potential incident that occurred earlier on, or just what you're enjoying the most, feel free to say. But as we now get the switch over here, I believe qualifying is about to kick off any moment. Everyone will be asked to ready up, and it will be the situation that after they've readied up, we will be getting that 10-second countdown. But I do expect that all eyes will be on Prima Kazuya in terms of can he make it 2 pole positions out of 2 in the qualifying session. And we do have those 3 laps, of course, so it's not the case that our drivers do not have just 1 lap and it's just a super lap or a super pole lap. It will be the case that they will have a couple of laps, but some drivers will need more time to get themselves set up, and that's where they're going to feel the pain here. But Kazuya in particular took provisional pole immediately at the start of the first qualifying session, and we imagine he is going to try and do it again as we now wait to get racing. The pole in what was the first qualifying session was a 35.3. Will we see another 35.3? Will we see even faster, or will we see something that's a little bit slower? Normally we expect to see a lap that is slightly behind the pole lap in the first session because there's less time available and less rubber down the track, but we will wait for the qualifying session to tell us whether that's the case. But as we continue to wait here, it is the case there's nothing that's coming from the head steward in office right now. Everyone's been given the order to head out to circuit, or at least ready up. So I think we are go any moment now, as we just see there Vulcan and also Dachu taking to the circuit, getting a little bit more practice in preparation for the qualified session as they take around in the Lexus RCF, of course the GT500 Super GT machine with that 638 brake horsepower in this instance. These cars, absolute mammoth beasts in terms of performance. Front engine rear wheel drive, very strong, but the thing about the launch of these cars in particular is the fact that they are based with a turbo, and therefore it is the case you've got to get this car into the turbo band in order to get the most out of it, and that's why we're seeing quite a bit of wheel spin on the grid as drivers are trying to hold in the turbo band and launch the car off the line, and nailing that turbo is the most critical part in the start of the race. But right now we are just waiting for a couple more drivers to ready up, but you can be sure once they've ready up we are go again, as we see Kazuya there giving the thumbs up to say he's almost good to go, and we're also waiting on the Italian of Traro, and once they are set we are going racing. I think we've got all 13 ready. It's time then, ladies and gentlemen, for the countdown for qualifying session number 2, as we just wait for the thumbs up from the Doctor, who is our lobby host and trackside steward. Now, whilst we are waiting, of course, everyone will use as much time as they can to practice. But you can see the Doctor there giving the thumbs up, the green light to go quali. So it should be any moment now. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. It is time for quali 2. 6 minutes will determine who's going to be on pole. Will it be Prima Kazuya once again, or will we see somebody different? Let's find out. So as the countdown begins, all of our drivers will immediately want to rush out into circuit, and we can see that it's Nixo PL who's the first to come out the pit lane here, and as a result get himself some nice clear air on track. In fact, he's got a nice gap to the rest of the field here, and for Nixo at this point, I think the PRT driver will now look at building up the heat in the tyres as quickly as possible and trying to maintain that gap. Now in terms of qualifying at this circuit, do you really want a slipstream over the course of your lap? Not really. You might want a bit of a tow coming out of turn 18 down towards turn 1. On the start of a lap, but beyond that you do not want a slipstream, just for a simple reason here. Downforce is critical in these Super GT cars. They rely very heavily on their downforce. We see Nixo there still trying to get the power down despite the rear tyres, in particular that rear left not being up to temperature and making his way on round. So I suspect our drivers will space out towards the end of their warm-up laps, but they will space out as quickly as possible in terms of they'll literally probably hold on the brakes for the third sector slightly through turns 14 and 15, which is a good pair of corners to try and get some space to the driver in front of you, and the traffic jam will form, and then they will all start to have enough breathing room to go qualify. Now, of course, we will ride on board with our lead driver who is making their way onto their first flying lap, and that'll be Nixo PL to take us around. But I do wonder whether it'll be Kazuya here, our P8 driver, who takes that pole position again, or whether we might see, say, Faster and alternatively Trara from GTD take that pole. We will have to find out as we see Kazuya making his way through turn at number 12 here, the Prima Esports driver. We're looking away from him to our lead driver here out on the circuit. We're right on board with Nixo PL as he takes us around for a qualifying lap at Autopolis in session number 2. So coming out the final corner here in third gear, building up through the gears now, up to fourth, up to fifth very shortly as he crosses the timeline to start his lap. He'll be going up into sixth gear well before he reaches the braking zone for turn 1. Making his way into that braking zone, of course, in excess of 170 miles an hour, braking at that 100 metre board, and very smooth on the entry there into turn 1, a very nice turn 1. And as he now comes down through turn 2, building up the throttle once again on the full offensive and coming down towards turn 3, looking at that 100 metre board and just beyond it and coming all the way down the gears to second gear here, nice and tight to the apex and keeping it to the right on the exit as he switches back to left-handers at 4 and 5. Now getting ready to throw the car to the left-hand side of the circuit before cutting it round into the turn 6 hairpin here, coming all the way down to first gear, and as he exits out the corner, sliding his way out to drift into 7 before now having to balance the throttle for turn number 8. He gets a nice late apex here and uses the inside curve there to hook the car around, and as he makes his way up towards turn 10 now, we can see getting ready to go into the hairpin braking zone here, braking that 100 metre board just at the marshal's post and coming all the way down to first gear as he balances the throttle and builds up the throttle on exit. Now making his way down towards turn 11, looking for the 50 metre board on the left-hand side. And as he comes into the corner here, looking to carry as much momentum as possible. Third gear there, 115 miles an hour on the apex, a nice high apex speed. Now coming up the hill through turn number 12 here. Third gear still, and trying to stay in third gear as long as possible uphill here, keeping the revs as high as possible as he now comes into 14. Trail braking through into 15, into second gear here. Now stamping on the throttle over the rise through turn number 16 before coming all the way through to the left of 17. Now only 2 corners remain, 2 critical corners here. Through turn number 18 he goes a bit deep, but looking for that late apex once again as he builds up the throttle here, trying to hang as much throttle in there. It's a good lap. What is it going to be from Nixo PL as he crosses the line? It's a 36.2 to set the opening lap. Aurelius meanwhile at 36.4. We can see Farstan at 36.2 as well. GMP from RTA has set a 36.0 already, as the Doctor is the first of our drivers to get into the 35s of 35.8. And Kazuya there proving that he's got that 1 lap pace as he sets a 35.6 for provisional pole here. Nasanas meanwhile into the 36.1 there in provisional P4. We've still got plenty more drivers coming around, but Farstan being demoted down to P6 in this provisional pole position session right now, as we can see that Vulcan in P8 as it currently stands, not having the best of the qualifying laps so far, but we can see that the majority of our drivers, and Trara in particular, are really struggling in this opening qualifying lap in terms of the 3 laps that are available to our drivers. Traro really down there in P13 right now. We're at 36.7. He's only 300ths off a Speed Hunter, but this is not the lap he will have wanted. As we say hello to Digital Car Culture there. Good evening to you, good sir. We hope you're doing well. And we can see Traro right now really in a linchpin position in terms of having to find some more lap time. But Kazuya, by comparison, doing a fantastic job of setting that 35.6. He's 3/10 off his best in the first qualifying session. Will he be able to find it over the remaining 2 laps? Well, right now, he does have the distance toe of what is GTMX's Speed Hunter as they come roaring through turn number 11, and I think for Kazuya he'll be looking to try and get that distant toe as he goes on to the final lap. But remember, if he gets too close to Speed Hunter, he will lose that front end downforce through sector 3, as I think he's now starting to feel the pain of losing that downforce. We can see the rear sliding around, snaking through 15, 16, and meanwhile as Nixo comes across the line, does he improve? He does not improve here, so we're waiting to see if everybody else improves right now, and we are waiting for the first time to come in as Volk Vulcan's on a personal best after the opening 2 sectors. The WSR driver as Nasana sits at 35.8 and goes provisional P2. Speed Hunter at 36.1. Adamus at 36.1. What about Vulcan? Vulcan improves to 36 point. What is... Excuse me, at 36.2 there as we get a glitch on our timing screen, and Vulcan's still P9, but Kazuya, oh goodness me, and Kazuya with a major moment there coming out of turn 1 and having to park it on the apex at 2. That's a disaster for Kazuya, and Traro goes provisional P2. He nails the lap to a 35.7 and he gives himself a 10th of room to Nasana's here, and I think for Traro right now he's done everything he needs to, because he'll know that Kazuya, when he sees him on the circuit map there, Kazuya is effectively out of this qualifying session. He's got a provisional pole. Is it enough? Let's take a look back at what happened. So this was only moments to go, going on to his final qualifying lap here for Kazuya, and as he made his way down towards turn number 1, we're going to see very heavy on the brakes in. Does he run wide? He's got a little bit of that the toe of a Speed Hunter, and it causes the rear left to just run a little bit wide as he got on the power there. There was only one way the car wanted to go, and that was into the inside wall there. So Kazuya right now is out of the qualifying session in terms of trying to put in a new lap, as we see Nixo PL has also come into the pits here and has now gone back out, and I don't think he's going to be able to get around to getting another lap. It's going to be very close. It's going to literally be on the boundary here if the Polishman's able to do it. In fact, I think they're all on their final laps right now, so my apologies. Nixo will not be putting in another lap here as we see Kazuya coming on around, and we've got all of our drivers now making their way to that timeline. We could see the fast down into P5. The Doctor improves to what is there at 35.8. That puts him provisional P3. We've still got more drivers coming through. We do see Adamus there promotes himself to P5, but for how long as Kossi does not improve from P11. A difficult qualifying session for the HKRT driver, and meanwhile as we look further around we see Traro here. He's not been purple in either the first or second sector. Can he dethrone Kazuya, or will it be 2 out of 2 for the Frenchman tonight? It does look as though it's 2 out of 2. Pole position goes to Kazuya, ladies and gentlemen, as he makes his way down towards turn 1, and it's a good thing he got it in on the second lap, because if he had made that mistake on the second lap and there was a case that he needed to go again, it would have been a disaster. But I think unless Nixo's on an outlap right now, it will be Primus Kazuya on pole, but alongside him will be GTD's Traro, and I can imagine that Traro would love to get the jump on the Frenchman going down to turn 1. The Doctor once again qualifying on that second row, but this time Adamus in P5, and we have got Nasanas here with a phenomenal qualifying session coming in at P4. And to be fair, the pole lap was only 3/10 of what we saw in the 15-minute session here, so our drivers putting in some phenomenal laps, and now we get ready to go racing in race number 3. It's going to be 6 laps. Who's going to be our winner? Let's find out. So as he pan down to the grid, is Kazuya from Prima on the left-hand side, GTD's Traro on the right-hand side, behind them the Doctor and the Sanas. But watch out for GMP in P7. Can he cut his way through the field, the Italian? And it's lights out, and away we go for race 3 as we see Kazuya gets a good start. Traro boxed down a little bit initially, but then gets to pick up on the turbo band as they make their way down towards turn 1. We see Aurelius already looking for a move in the rear of your pitch. They're going for the move into the corner, but as they come on down, we see the Doctor defending versus Nasanas. Further back, we've got GMP on the move versus Fast, and they both make contact, but they make it through unscathed as they now come through 2 and up towards 3. And as they all come running into the second of the major braking zones, we can see that further behind, we do have there Nixo making the move versus Vulcan. He's got himself up to P8 as Nixo is behind. It looks like the WSR driver, the Turkishman of Vulcan, has dropped a couple of positions, and Aurelius is on the offensive. His teammate, as they all come down into the turn 6 hairpin here, and as they make their way through the corner, we can see that everyone's trying to push their way through and find a position as they come up into turn number 8, and it is Nixo defending versus Dachu. The 2 drivers here, one from PRT, the other from KRT, the 2 Polishmen going to war, and it does look as though Vulcan is now making the move for P9 as they come up into turn number 10 here, and we can see behind it is the case that Kossi goes through a major move. And my goodness, ladies and gentlemen, that was a brave lunge and a half, and Kossi has just gained 2 places under heavy braking there. We'll take a look back at that shortly. Now, that was an absolute move, and I think he relied on drivers seeing him coming, but Kossi, with the bravest move of the night so far, takes P10, as meanwhile Kazuya's already making the break, and the Doctor has found his way past Charo, who's had a poor run here through the 3rd sector. Nasana's getting through as well. I think Charo's probably run wide out of turn number 12 as they make their way through number 17, and as they come up towards 18 right now, Charo just having to go defensive, literally having to turn into a brick wall and trying to stop the drivers behind him from punching through it as they make their way out the final corners. So after 1 lap, leading by a second, it is Primus Kazuya, followed by the Doctor from KRT. Then we've got Honeys Nasanis in P3, followed by Charo from GTD in P4. Adamas from KRT in P5, followed by what is GMP in P6. Then we've got Farstan in P7, being chased by Dachu in P8. Then Vulcan P9, followed by Kossi in P10. And then we do have in Nixo in P11, followed by Aurelius in P12. And then last of our runners right now is Speed Hunter, who's making the move versus Aurelius down into 2. He's coming along the inside here, and Aurelius squeezes up onto the grass. And as they make their way into turn number 3 right now, Speed Hunter not able to find the space this time around. But as they make their way through, let's take a look back at what was an absolutely huge move from Kossi. So as they made their way through here, you'll watch it from the perspective of the Greek driver. Now watch, he's in P12, and you'll see as they come up into turn 9 here, the guys ahead of him battling quite heavily, and as he comes up towards the braking zone here with a major overspeed, he not does 1, he does 2 under braking and plants the car right there in the space, and Kossi going for a brave move. And of course, with moves like that, when they work, they are brilliant. When they don't work, they are disastrous. But Kossi making it work there, and we love him for it, as they make their way down out of turn number 10 for the second time of asking right now. No major changes this time as they all come rip-roaring down into 11. But meanwhile, our race leader is trying to make the break, and the Doctor, I reckon, is trying to close up as rapidly as possible here. The Doctor will not want to see Kazuya break away like in race number 1 as they make their way on through turns 15 and into 16. Behind them, Nasanis right now trying to stay away from Charo, who's really struggling to get that car switched on right now as they make their way through 17. We can see the rear end just stepping out very heavily under power. He's getting quite a lot of torque spin there with regards to the rear wheels as they make their way through turn number 19, and behind Adamas trying to look rather threatening, but Farstan right now I think is the one who's more threatening versus Adamas rather than Adamas and Charo as they make their way onto lap number 3. They come roaring down towards turn number 1 once again here, and Adamas, well, he's not going defensive. Farstan's not close enough, but you can see Farstan really taking that aggressive angle into the turn 1 corner there, into the apex, and as a result I think the Canadian's trying to make it clear to the guy in front of him, look, I'm coming through for you very shortly, whether you like it or not. As meanwhile further back we can see that in the battle for what is P11, we have Nixo holding on for the time being as Aurelius looks on a move there into turn 3, and Speed Hunter is concertinaed into him as they make their way through. And I think there Aurelius was trying to go for the move on the inside, but Nixo shut the door as late as he possibly could as they make their way into turn number 6. And as they come through the corner, we can see that GMP under major over the second. GMP's gained a position here. Farstan's had a moment because he's dropped down from the back of Adamas. As they make their way on through the corner, we'll wait and see if Farstan goes to the return move here. But you can see GMP going defensive. He knows Farstan wants to come back through. And the RTA driver, I should say, is trying to keep that position for the time being. But this will give Adamas the ability to break away. What he's trying to do, GMP, is trying to get Farstan to fall backwards into Dachu. So right now, the KRT driver in P8 battles with Farstan and releases GMP to run his own race in a more comfortable place. But as they come on through, the right-hander at turn 12 right now, it's anything but that as they ascend the hill. But meanwhile, looking at our race leader, once again, we can see the gap between himself and the Doctor is maintained at 1 second right now. And as they both come up into turn number 18, no change. They seem to be the equal of measure. As meanwhile, Nasanis has got Charo gradually creeping up to the back of him. The gap between these two, 6 tenths of a second, and closing as they come onto the straight here with the power of the slipstream that Charo has versus Nasanis as they make their way onto lap number 4. One half of the race completed. We're now to the second half as they all come roaring down towards turn number 1 for the 4th time of asking. Behind them, we can see Adamas holding on to that P5 comfortably, and GMP here in P6. But further back, we can see Aurelius going for the move on Nixo here into turn 1. Aurelius tried this into turn 3 on the previous day. He couldn't find it, and he still cannot find a way through versus the Polishman. Can the Frenchman as they make their way through 2 and up into 3 here. And I think Aurelius is going to have to find somewhere else on the circuit. He's going to have to be inventive and find a weakness in Nixo's arsenal as they make their way through 4. And you can see Speed Hunter tucked in behind right now, and the Mexican will be looking for that move as Aurelius looks inside into 6. Well, I think that was more to go defensive versus Speed Hunter rather than try to get past Nixo as they make their way through. And Aurelius really struggling for rear end grip on the exit of 6 there as they come through 7 and up into 8. Meanwhile, in that battle for P3, I can tell you that Nasanis is being closed up by Charo very gradually. A 10th has been taken in the first first two sectors, and as they make their way out of 10 and down towards 11, I think Charo is sizing up the move come the very end of this race as they all come rip-roaring down. And as they make their way down, let's take a look back at what happened to Farstan moments ago with regards to him losing positions. So this was earlier on, and we saw it here fast down on lap number 3. He's behind Adamas coming into turn 6 now. Does he get it wrong here on the exit? He does. He squeezes himself alongside Adamas, but then backs off the throttle due to the contact. So showing great sportsmanship there to back off, and GMP took the position by simply seeing it fast down backing out of the racing. And as they make their way on around once again here, they come onto the penultimate very shortly. We see that Farstan, well, he's broken away from Dachu. He's going after GMP once again, but for how long will it be before GMP either breaks away or feels that pressure? As we see Nixo still holding on to that P11 position versus Aurelius here, and these two are inseparable as they go on to lap number 5, although Aurelius here very close. He's in the slipstream this time. Surely he's going to be going for the move as they make their way down to 1. He's looking here and he can't find it. Aurelius just does not have either the brakes or the pace to get it done into 1, and as they make their way down towards turn number 3 here, we can see that the PLT driver just does not seem to have any weaknesses right now. He just seems to be able to keep the WSR driver at bay, but will he be able to on the final lap? Of course, that will be a different question, where Aurelius will have the adrenaline pumping as high as possible as they make their way through 5 and up into 6, and we can see Nixo defending as if his life depended on it into turn 6 here, but Aurelius finds an opening on the inside exit there, and as they make their way into 7, no way through. Still, oh goodness me, and Aurelius onto the grass there, and I do not know, did he hit the wall? He didn't hit the wall. What on earth happened there? So as he is making his way, as we can see here, through what was turns 4 and 5, it will be the case just playing it back for his onboard perspective. As he comes into 6, he looks at the inside. There's a little bit of contact with Nixo, but nothing too major. And as he goes up into 7, I think it's going to be a case he just simply goes too high onto the grass, and it's the rear wheels. But look at that catch there from Aurelius. I think that is one of the biggest catches that we have seen all season in terms of stopping the car, and Aurelius keeping that car out of the wall there. A good job done, as we see our leaders right now going through turn 18 and going on to the final lap very shortly. And we see that the Doctor has tried to close that gap up to within 3/4 of a second to give him the slipstream here, but it is the case he hasn't found a way to break through Kazuya's armour. The leaders onto the final lap, and we see Nasanas here. Hold up a second, what's happened to Charo? Charo's into the pits, and I think Charo's got damage to the car, as we can see that Dachu making his way along right now, and Charo with a major moment. Surely not, as we can see that the battles have subsided right now, and Charo was looking rather menacing towards the end. But let's try and find out what's happening as he's emerged from the pit lane, and it's the case they've done repair work to the car, but can we find out what exactly happened? Was he's making his way up into 18 here. There was nothing wrong with the car at this point, and as he was going through the corner here, going for the right-hander into left, I think Charo's just popped into the pits. Now, I'm wondering here whether Charo's decided to give himself positioning for the final race tonight. I'm not 100% sure what's happened there, but that means he's going to finish P13, and he had enough fuel to go to the end, but Charo just decided to pit, and I'm wondering if he's playing the game of trying to start on pole for race number 4. We'll have to wait and see, but meanwhile, it will be the case that with regards to the rest of the field, Nasanas will now find himself in a very grateful position of being in P3. This is going to give him some extra points, as we see behind it is Adamas, who's under pressure from GMP, but not enough pressure to potentially go for a move come the end here, and it does look as though most of the racing's calmed down, although I say that as we see Kossi here in P9. It's Nixo still holding off what is Speed Hunter there in the battle for P10. These three have been inseparable over the race distance so far as they make their way up the hill now through 12 and into 13 and 14 and 15, but meanwhile it's been inseparable for our two leaders, but it's going to be Kazuya who takes the win in race number 3 for Team Prima. The French driver takes the win, 7 tenths clear of Cautis, the Dr. R10, and Nasanas from Honey, the Frenchman, takes P3 ahead of Adamas from Cauti in P4, RTH GMP in P5, Farstan from AFC in P6, Dachu in P7, Vulcan P8, then it's going to be Kossi from HKT in P9, and Nixo held on in the end to P10, Speed Hunter P11, then we've got Aurelius and WSR in P12, and it will be Charo who's come home in P13. Congratulations to all our drivers, but to our race winner, a special congratulations, Kazuya from France for Team Prima. Well, another brilliant race there to start off the second half of our proceedings tonight. And as we can see, here are your race results subject to any stewards' inquiries. We do have their Prima Kazuya taking home another win, making it 2 sprint wins out of 2, and the Doctor coming home in that P2 in that close-knit battle, in the end separated by only 7/10 of a second. Meanwhile, it was Nasanas who completed our podium there in P3, and then outside of our top 3, it was Adamas and GMP who wrapped up there the top 5 of our field. And then looking further down the order to complete really our order now from P6 onwards, it was the situation of Fast Stand finishing in P6 there. As we can see, the Canadian from AFC putting in another solid job. Then ATR Dachu in P7, followed by what was a Vulcan from WSR in P8. And then further down, we do have Kossi from HKRT in P9. And we expect Kossi to try and pull off another major effort in the feature race from that P9, which will give him effectively P5 in the reverse grid for race number 4. And then looking even further down, we had Nixo there finishing in P10. Nixo putting in a brilliant defensive effort to hold on to that P10. And then we do have the situation where Speed Hunter finishing in P11, followed by Aurelius in P12. Last our drivers was, of course, Traro there finishing in P13, and I do wonder whether Traro decided to pit to give himself the lead position going into the final race. Now, of course, I'm not going to throw it out there if there's any tactics going on, but it is a situation that was a little bit of a surprise pit stop, as we see the Doctor R10 setting the fastest lap as well on the second lap of 37.240, the fastest lap we have seen in race trim to date tonight in at least Group C. As we now wait to get the switch over to what is our final race in terms of the settings, a brilliant race number 3, and now we only have one more race to go, and it will of course be the second of our feature races, which will be the 17 laps. The strategy's all in there, and we're just waiting for the switch over currently, as I believe it may be the case. There we go, ladies and gentlemen, there is the switch over, and our drivers will be asked to ready up. But right now, going into this final race of tonight, it is Primus Kazuya who is currently leading overall out of our 13 drivers in terms of performances. And if he can put in another solid result and finish within the top 5, I suspect he will be our overall winner in Group C tonight. Our second place man, meanwhile, is still Charo, despite that P13. And he'll set himself up, of course, to get the potential win, I reckon, in race number 4, based on the fact he'll be starting at the front of the field. As we do get the graphical glitch there, which will hopefully clear. There it goes. And then what is Fast Stand in that P3 with 2 6th place finishes in the sprint. And now he'll be looking to try and finish on the podium once again in the final race tonight. It's looking very close between all of our drivers, as we do get the thumbs up there from Adamas to say that he's good to go. We are now just waiting for the countdown for race number 4. And I think I'm going to try and quickly sneak in a quick sip of water before we go. Remember, folks, always stay hydrated. I can definitely recommend that. But for right now, as we are waiting to go racing once again, you have to imagine that Traro will be looking to make that early break, the early charge starting on the front row. Or will we see a surprise? Will we see a spin in the tail with the likes of, say, Aurelius starting near him and other drivers as well? But we can only find out once we go racing, and it is the Doctor who's about to give us the thumbs up, of course, for race number 4, the final race tonight. As there's the countdown, ladies and gentlemen. We take to the circuit one last time. It is time for race number 4, 17 laps. Who's going to be the winner? Let's find out. So as we pan down to the grid for one last time, it's GTD's Traro lined up on pole on the left-hand side. Beside him is WSR's Aurelius in P2. Watch out for Speed Hunter and Nixo PL on the second row, but also keep an eye on Kazuya starting on the 7th row in P13. Can he make his way into the top 5? And it's lights out and away we go, and we see Traro bogging down the start, and I think we have had a lobby glitch here because we've had multiple drivers crash at the very start here, and I'm not sure what's going to happen with regards to restarting the racing, but only 7 drivers have made it away as we've had a major crash at the very start of the race. We'll wait to see right now, but this is not good viewing for a good number of drivers right now, as we do have the bug start here, and I think we will be getting a restart to the race. Yes, we are indeed, as we see our drivers Charo's quit out there, and that was a major incident, which means that we will be getting a restart as everybody is told to leave what is the race, and we will be restarting race number 4. But it was the situation where we've had Charo just park it on the start line there, and I don't think it was intentional. I think he was locked in place and couldn't get the car to pull off, so we will be getting a restart underway within the next 5 minutes. As that was quite a bit of drama there to kick off the proceedings. We all have that restart there. Pierre Chatura tuning in as well, and it's good to hear from you, Pierre, as we are seeing the grid is now going to be set by our host, of course, and we now just wait to get underway. Now, this does happen. This is a known glitch with regards to GT Sport, where you sometimes get a driver who is just stuck on the grid and cannot pull off the line. But we do have procedures in place for it. I think it may be the case that the GTD driver of trial may be asked to leave the lobby and rejoin, so that way we can try and fix it, and maybe a connectivity bug, but we'll wait to see. We haven't had this, of course, over the opening 3 races, so it's a little bit of a surprise that we suddenly had this, but we will now wait to see what is going to happen. I think we are hearing that Chara as well is experiencing some issues in leaving the pit lane. So Chara is going to restart his connection. So we are going to have a delay. It's probably going to be somewhere in the region of 5 to 7 minutes, this delay right now, before we can complete our racing for tonight. But just bear with us, ladies and gentlemen. We will get these technical issues fixed as quickly as possible, and I hope to have all 13 drivers back out on circuit for the final race. Indeed, it is going to be a very close-knit race. But I think the strategy is going to play such an important role, and all of our drivers will be aware of that. As we see the Canadian fast stand here doing everything he needs to right now and getting himself prepared and just waiting to go racing. I think the itch is sometimes a little bit uncontrollable for some of the drivers. They just want to be out on circuit, and fast stand right now proving that itch and putting it aside by trying to get in as many practice laps as possible, looking for where he can find perhaps an extra attempt, where he can optimise that fuel saving even more over the race distance, and all of them will be doing that. They'll all be putting in these practice laps where they can, just looking to get themselves set. As we see more drivers just getting themselves set up here, and we can see Trara has just rejoined the lobby, so we're expecting that Trara will be readying up, and hopefully we will not encounter the same issue twice as we see Dachu make his way down towards turn number 1. As we're just waiting, we are going to check in with our head stewards right now with regards to if there's anything else that's being reported. We're not hearing anything at the moment, so I think we are just waiting on the return of Trara and to make sure that we can go racing once again. And we do have the call there for the doctor to say that everyone needs to go green. I say they are ready to go races, that way the grid can be set by our lobby host. But we are now just roughly about 2 to 3 minutes away from going racing once more. And here we go then, ladies and gentlemen. I think the doctor has set the grid, and it is the case that now we are going to reattempt the race start for race number 4. As you see, Vulcan making his way into the pits, and we'll look to ATL Dachu as he makes his way down towards turn number 11. There's the countdown again, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to take a second attempt at race number 4. 17 laps. Who's going to be the winner? Let's find out. So as we pen down to the grid once again, it is Trara from GTD started on pole on the left-hand side. On the right, WSR Aurelius. But watch out for the drivers who will try to scythe their way through the field, such as Fastdown in P8. And most importantly, Primus Kazuya starting from P13. He'll want to finish in the top 5 to seal his dominance in this lobby. And it's lights out and away we go, and all drivers able to pull off the line this time. And Traro there with a very good start compared to the rest of the field behind him and taking the lead well down to turn 1. As we see Aurelius holding on to P2. Behind, we've got a big shuffle here of cars as Kossi being pinballed about between the drivers, Speed Hunter and Dachu, as they make line 3. But Kossi has emerged up into P3 as they make their way down. Our top 3 breaking away. Kossi having to go into the fight here versus Speed Hunter into turn 3. Speed Hunter on the inside, Kossi on the outside here. They're still door to door as they make their way through. Kossi holds the inside of 4 and holds the position. Further back, we can see that we've got Farstan there in P8. He hasn't made any places, he hasn't lost any, but as they make their way on through, we've got Vulcan in P9 here with Nasanis between himself and the Apex at turn 7 as they make their way on through, but he'll switch back to a left-hander now, and we'll see that Vulcan will hold the position here as he defends hard versus Nasanis and parks on the Apex of 8 as they come roaring up the hill. We can see there that Dachi just going a little bit wide coming out of 8, but keeping the momentum and goes defensive up into 10. Farstan trying to make an early move as they go into the turn 10 hairpin here, and Farstan's going to hold to the outside, but there's only so much room, and Dachu in the end retains the position as they make their way down the hill now towards turn number 11. But it's been a very dramatic opening lap here in terms of attempts at moves. No major incidents, but we can see here how Farstan is trying to get a move on, and behind I can tell you that Kazuya is already up into P12. He's found a way past Doctor, but beyond that right now, these two of course main rivals in terms of pace. I think they're going to try and work together for a little bit and not do anything too catastrophic or chaotic right now as they make their way through 15 and 16 and head to the end of the lap. As they come on through the left-hander of 17 and into the rise to 18, we can see that they're all settling down into a rhythm. So after one lap, it is GTD Straro open up a gap of 1.2 seconds ahead of WSR's Aurelius here in P2. Nixo PL from what is kept PLT in P3, followed by HKRT's Kossi in P4. Then we do have their Speed Hunter in P5 from GTMX, followed by RTH GMP in P6. We then got Farstan going for the move here versus Dachu. A classic move, but Dachu switches it back here on the inside, and there's big contact between the two of them. We'll take a look back at what happened shortly, but I think Farstan may have overcooked it into the braking zone, so Farstan loses 3 places for going for one move, and we can see that Adamus there riding way too high in the apex at turn number 3, and as a result feeding himself out of position now as they come down into 6, and as they make their way into the corner, we can see Adamus having to go very defensive versus the Canadian as they come out of the hairpin and into 7, and the KRT driver here feeling a little bit uncomfortable at this point of the race. It's all for his own doing by the looks of things as they make their way through turn number 8 once again and come up towards their hairpin. Now will we see a potential move here as we've got Adamus in P9, Farstan in P10, then behind we can see Kazuya, the Doctor and the Nasanis completing our field as they all come through, and Nasanis there has dropped all the way down to P13. I think that was through turn 17 on the previous lap, making a mistake. As they all come down, we can see they've all calmed down at this point, and we now look back to what happened between Farstan and what was our P7 driver only moments ago. So this was Farstan versus Dachu, and what we're going to see here as he makes his way down, as we see where it was Nasanis losing the 2 places in the run down towards turn 1 in the rear of your picture. Farstan went for the move but broke way too late and tried to cut across the front of Dachu by looks of things, and Dachu simply went for the cut back there, and Farstan had nowhere to go other than pay a visit to the gravel as they made the way out of the corner. Farstan a little bit enthusiastic there to go for the move, as we see that after 2 laps right now, our race leader Troa is breaking away that lead now, 2.6 seconds, really just running away with this one. As meanwhile Aurelius in P2, then we have got Nixo in P3 here, who's holding the line very well, the PRT driver, followed by Kossi in P4, and then we've got Speed Hunter in P5. Then RTA's GMP in P6 just chasing after them as they all make the way down towards turn number 3 once again. And it's quite a calm moment right now, but we did see in the first strategy race, or the first feature race we should really say, in race number 2, that it was like this, where we had the calm before the storm, and it was particularly towards the end of the opening stint where we saw some of the faster drivers really going for those moves, the drivers who protected the car more and saved a bit more fuel. So will we see that again from the likes of GMP and also the likes of Kazuya, who down in P11 right now, we can see him here. He will look to try and get past the drivers ahead of him, I'm sure, come lap 6 up towards 7, as we see that Kossi having to go on the offensive versus Nixo, and as he went for it, he's gone a bit deep. Now he has made it work, having given him the position alongside down into 11. Kossi on the inside here versus Nixo on the outside. They go into the braking zone, and Kossi, I think, has nailed it. Well, there's a little bit of scrub there, and it is the case that they've made their way through the corner, and the pair of them had trade places. So Kossi went for the move, and he got it under braking into turn 10 and made it through into 11 on the inside as they make their way through 15 now. And it's the case of Kossi doing everything he can to stay in that P3. And I think for the HKRT driver, he will know that he can be on with another podium here and make it 2 podiums in 2 feature races. As meanwhile, Nixo defending versus Speed Hunter. But Speed Hunter goes to the cutback on the inside onto the apex of 18. And as they make their way out of 19 here to the end of lap number 3, we see that Nixo loses another position to Speed Hunter. But it's a long race down towards turn number 1 on lap number 4. And we can see that Nixo trying to come back here on the outside. It's 3 wide down into the corners. We see GMP goes to the inside here. versus Speed Hunter. They come together, and who's going to emerge the victor? I think it's Speed Hunter, but GMP's still there on the inside, and GMP in the end with a brave move, making it a 3-wide situation into turn 1. GMP gains 2 places at the price of 1 corner as they make the way down through turn number 4, and GMP, they're just simply having the boldness on the brakes to take that inside line, and Speed Hunter, I think, overextending from the corner as they make the way for the hairpin. And we can see behind now how Speed Hunter's still in that battle with Nixo. A little bit of contact between the two of them as Speed Hunter's pushed a little bit onto the grass down the exit of 6, but he's still there on the inside into 8. But I think Nixo can now shut the door as he's carried the momentum around the outside versus the Mexican has the Polishman as they make the way through. Behind them, we can see that Dachu's really starting to struggle here in P7. As we can see, Farstan looking for the move into the turn 10 hairpin, but he's gone very wide. And look at Vulcan. Look at this. The WSR driver knows when to go up the inside here. They're going to have the drag race down towards 11. They're going to make it 3 wide. Now calm it down, lads. There's only space for 1. As we see Dachu there with a door-to-door with Farstan. Farstan makes the move there, but the Canadian going for a very, very elbows out move as they come for 11 now up into 12 and 13. And as they come into the double right of 14 and 15, Farstan is now the head of this pack. But will he be grateful for the fact that the Canadian has now got the entire rest of the field chasing after him here from P8 down to P13 as he makes his way through turn 17 here. He's going to go to work with breaking away and chasing down Speed Hunter. As we see Dachu, they're really struggling on the entry into 18, just simply picking up a lot of understeer, and it's cost him a lot of momentum, and Farstan's being allowed to break away here as Dachu's now vulnerable to the Turkish with a Vulcan, and we can see the whole pack is trying to come through as Dachu goes defensive into 1, and it's going to be another 3-wide situation. Here's Kazuya, the Doctor, and Vulcan. It's 4 wide almost as they make the way into the corner, but they settle back into a 2x2, and Dachu holds onto the position. Vulcan's still behind him, but we can see behind them Kazuya wary of the fact he doesn't want to lose the position to the Doctor, as we see that Dachu holding defensive here, and Kazuya comes through for a sweep for 2 as they make the way into 4, but they're 3 wide, and Kazuya's pushed onto the curb, and that was very close to going very wrong as the Doctor comes through, and Adamus is now into this fight, and the Polish with Dachu, the KRT driver, does not want to let anybody through. I suspect if it's his teammates, it'll be another matter, but Dachu driving defensively and showing you how it's done as they make the way through the corner, and we can see that with this, we've now got the Doctor coming up. And I think Dachu here going to the inside. He's going to tuck in defensively as we see Adamas trying to cover on the inside of Kazuya. Their Vulcan trying to go around the outside. And it's definitely the case. The KRT drivers are working together right now to try and get the Doctor clear of the rest of the pack here and give him the breathing room as Dachu's still in P9. And the Doctor has been let through as they make the way through 11 and into 12. This is a brilliant teamwork dynamic here as we see Dachu really acting as the cork in the bottle as they come sweeping up the hill through 13 once again. And as they come now through the double right, I can't imagine that we're going to be seeing Kazuya come through here. It's going to have to go down to 1 on the next lap into turn 1, we should say, as they make their way through 17 once again, and they're all nose to tail in that battle for P9. Meanwhile, further up we can see Aurelius continue to hold on to P2 here versus Kossi and GMP as they make their way down towards 1 on lap number 6, and it is the case that Speed Hunter is starting to fall back a little bit as RTA's driver here, GMP, looks to the move versus Kossi, but he's not close enough here as Aurelius goes heavy under braking as well. And meanwhile in that battle for P6, Nixo's got Farstan closing up on him. Meanwhile in that battle for P9, we can see Kazuya going around the outside of Dachu here, and the Frenchman's had enough as there's contact between the two of them, and we can see a flash of the lights there from Dachu, but I do think he's probably kept his nose in it a little too long as we see that now Adamus is coming through versus his teammate, and I think Dachu's done everything that's been asked of him in terms of trying to hold up the pack and let the KRT drivers gain as much as possible. The Doctor has gained massively from this, Adamus less so, but I can tell you that right now it is the situation where I think Kazuya's got to try and really now over-egg it on the field in order to catch up to his main rival in terms of pace, and that's the Doctor up in P8. As they make their way through turn number 8 once again, and we can see behind Dachu now starting to fall back towards the Sarnas and also Vulcan as they make their way up in towards turn number 10 for the 6th time of asking. We see Vulcan here looking for the double move. He can't quite find it as they go into the corner. They all settle back down. A little bit of nose to tail contact here, but nothing major, just a brief bump on the rear end as they now make their way down towards turn number 11. But meanwhile in the battle for P2, we ride on board here with WSR's Aurelius, who's doing everything he can right now to hold on to this P2 position. Of course, he will be losing out on the fuel saving aspect with the fact he hasn't got a driver in front of him to slipstream it and save fuel on the straights. But what we can see is he's got Kossi and GMP right behind him and Speed Hunter closing up as well. But to be fair to Aurelius, while we've only seen him in qualifying session 2 and race 3, he's putting in a good show so far as he comes through the final corner here to complete his 6th tour of the circuit. And as they make their way down, we can see GMP here looking for the move. Kossi's also got the speed here, and it's going to be a reverse Moses manoeuvre. As we can see, Aurelius has got one driver on each side. They come down into turn 1. Kossi's got the momentum, GMP as well. But GMP with a double initial toe had the overspeed there. Kossi gains, then returns to P3, but GMP makes it a 2-for-1 special down into turn 1 and gets up into 2nd place as they come down towards turn number 3. And we see Speed Hunter now looking for the move versus Aurelius. There's a little bit of contact in the corner, and Speed Hunter getting his nose in. And we see contact between the two of them, and it sends Speed Hunter into the wall. And I do think Speed Hunter's not going to be happy with that one, as we see Farstan coming up behind him. Farstan there looking to go for the move before Speed Hunter returns to the pace right now. And it does look as though the elbows are coming out as Farstan almost loses it on the exit of 6. And as they come up towards 7 right now, Speed Hunter, I think, has got to get himself back in the mindset and continue around, because he's only dropped to P7. But has he got damage? He has got front damage to the car right now. So I think Speed Hunter may try to go for the undercut here. It's lap number 7, so the 2-lap undercut could work versus the longer strategy, the preferable strategy of pitting on lap 9 for the 1 stop. But we'll wait and see as Speed Hunter makes his way down and is losing places quite rapidly. As behind him, well, the good news for him, of course, is that Nasanas battling with Dachu and Vulcan, he won't have to worry as much about the P11 and P12 and P13 drivers catching up, because they're a long way behind and are taking time out of one another like it's nobody's business. As they make their way through turn number 12 and into 13, we can see that Nasanas is the head of these 3 right now, and these guys have been trading places over the course of the race over the last 7 laps. But meanwhile, as they make their way on through to complete the 7th lap, it is the situation whereby in the battle for P2, GMP has already broken away and is now going after Traro, but he's got a gap of 7.1 seconds to close down, as our Italian in the lead just seems to be in a world of his own. As we see, it is Speed Hunters into the pits there. We've confirmed our suspicions, and it'll be Aurelius in P4 chasing after Kossi at this time. But meanwhile, Farstan here chasing after the Doctor, and it hasn't happened on camera, but what I can tell you is that the Doctor in that P5 position right now is doing everything he can to close up to Aurelius, pushing hard. But as they come through into the right-hander at turn number 3, watch out for Kazuya, who's in P7 right now, who, as we start to head towards the midpoint of the race, who's going to go for the pit stop on lap 8, who's going to go 1 lap longer and pit on lap number 9 and give themselves the fresher tyres. What I do think that right now for Kazuya, he may be thinking to himself, as we see behind there, Nixo going for the move versus Adamus into turn number 6, and they give one over just about enough room as Adamus is squeezed to the outside, but you have the inside into 8. This is not over yet. The 2 Polish drivers going toe to toe. Adamus, of course, for KRT and Nixo for PRT, and as they make the way out of 8, it is the case that Adamus holds back onto P8 for the time being as they make the way up into turn number 10. Adamus, they're brave to hold it round the outside to inside into 8, but he's made it work and retained P8 as a result as they make the way down towards turn 11, and we can see there in the rear of your picture, that's Vulcan getting it very wrong on the exit of turn number 10, and as a result he drops further down the field now into P12, and far off Adachi. 3.3 seconds is now the deficit that he's got to overcome. As he makes his way through turn number 12. One driver's already made his way through turn number 12. Here's GMP, of course, our P2 man, and he's got a 1.5 second gap to Kossi. Now, will we see any pit stops? Our race leader has yet to pit, and GMP into the pits. He's going on lap 8, not lap 9. He's gone early. What about Kossi? He's in as well, and we can see that Kossi with a bit less fuel. Meanwhile, it's the case that the Doctor soldiers on, and Aurelius as well, as Kazuya comes into the pits, and we can see that it's GMP with the greatest amount of fuel saving so far out of all the drivers who are coming in for their pit stop here. But a lot of drivers deciding to go long and go on to that 9th lap. We see Adamus has stayed out as well, as has Nasanas as well from Honey, and we've also got Dachu here and Vulcan. But we will see how these drivers all come out of the pits very shortly, as we are waiting for that confirmation. I think it could be Farstan and Kazuya who are in a battle with one another as they emerge from the pits. As it is Kazuya right now, who comes on out, and he's ahead of Farstan. Kazuya has jumped Farstan into the pit stops. Kossi has come out ahead of them, which we expected, because he was quite a way up the road. But Farstan has dropped position to Kazuya. Now Kazuya needs to nail this run to turn 3, because if Farstan's able to get alongside him and make the move, it is going to hurt his race massively if he wants to chase down the leaders. But Farstan, I think, will be cognizant of the fact that any fighting these two do on this lap is going to destroy their respective races and the chances of undercutting the rest of the field ahead of them. So I don't think we're going to see Farstan and fight this one too hard for the time being. Maybe later in the race as they make their way through turn 6. Indeed, Kazuya holding on to that position. Fast Dan being right on his slipstream, right on his 6 right now. Speed Hunter has come out behind the pair of them, of course, with the damage to the car earlier on, forcing him into that early pit stop. But as they make their way on through right now, through turn number 8 and up into 9, we look to our leaders, and Aurelius in particular, who's got the Doctor closing over the back of him right now. And the WSR driver is going to be thinking to himself, I'm sure at this point, okay, just bring it into the pits and where you emerge, fight for that position. As we see that Traro's into the pits from the lead, and he is the best part of almost 11 seconds ahead of Aurelius. I think Traro is going to have this race come hell or high water, as we see our P2 and P3 man both into the pits, scraping the walls as they come in, and Aurelius with more fuel compared to the Doctor. As meanwhile, where is Nasanus in all this? Well, he's making his way in right now. And it's going to be Dachu who's coming into the pits here from P6. Vulcan in as well. So where's GMP in all of this? Well, he's making his way through turn 18 right now. As I say, I reckon that Traro's going to come out ahead of all the drivers here. He's coming out of the pits right now on 63% fuel. He's just emerged, 83% fuel. He's just emerged from the pits. You can see him at the head of the camera. And then we've got Corsi coming across the line here. Now, what about Aurelius? We've got Aurelius coming out the pits. And we can see there is Kazuya. And Kazuya has jumped ahead of the Doctor by undercutting here, and as a result we can see that Speed Hunter looking for the move versus the Doctor, but he's not close enough. So the Doctor's come out in P7. He's lost 2 places to Speed Hunter, to what is Fast Dan and Kazuya, and that is the power of the undercut. Remember, the Doctor will have the fresher tyres come the final lap of the race, and that's going to be critical for him, as we see that Kazuya under that pressure right now from Fast Dan. But remember, Kazuya will be closing up to Aurelius rapidly here, and he'll be looking to make a move on the P4 driver. Meanwhile, our race leader of Traro will just be going off into the distance, we reckon, given the fact he's shown so much pace so far, as we see Kazuya just holding on for the time being, coming through turn number 8. As he makes his way on through here, we look a bit further down the order and we can see that Nixo has re-emerged ahead of Adamus once again here. So it is the situation where Nixo just proving to be a nightmare for Adamus to deal with here. The 2 Polish drivers, of course, representing their country proudly, but both of them want to do better than the other for their respective teams. As we see Nixo going deep under brake, and Adamus looks in a move, but he's not able to find it as they come out the corner. And as they head down towards turn number 11, Adamus looking menacing, but Nixo able to hold his own for the time being. But Adamus is going to have to try and get a move on soon, because he's losing out on an opportunity to go hunting down towards Speed Hunter up in P8. It was 5 seconds up the road and gradually walking off into the distance. And I think these guys will be battling for P9 for the rest of the race if it carries on like this. We still do have 7 more laps to go after this one, and it's anybody's guess who's going to be on the podium come the end of it. But we do believe that Traro has pretty much cemented a very strong certainty of being our race winner based on the pace he's shown at the start of this race. But meanwhile, we can see here, as all our drivers make their way across that timeline, how the Doctor is pushing after Fast Dan and Kazuya, and they're tucked in behind Aurelius here. And I wonder if Kazuya's underfueled the car, because we would have expected him to get past Aurelius, but Aurelius seems to be holding strong here. And we can see behind our Fast Dan having to go defensive versus the Doctor into turn 3, and Fast Dan in fact having to look for the move on Kazuya here. And I do not think that Kazuya is travelling at a fast enough pace, which Fast Dan is clearly showing here as they make the way down into 6, and Fast Dan looks for the move, but he's got to go half defensive. And as they make their way out of the corner here, we're right on board with WSR Aurelius here, the lead of the 2 French drivers, as they make their way through turn number 8. And you can see how Aurelius just seems so comfortable right now. He's not under too much pressure, and he's holding onto this race and doing a very good job of holding onto this P4 as it currently stands. Now, coming into the braking zone, Kazuya looks at it as Doctor goes to the move on Fast Dan there in the rear of your picture, and the Doctor in a drag race now coming down towards turn number 11 as they make their way charging down towards the hill here. We can see that the Doctor has got the move done, and just simply doing it under braking with how bunched up the 4 of them were, he was able to get the move done. And as they make the way up through the right hand of turn number 12 right now, the Doctor staying there as they come through turn number 13 and into 14. Now, can he do the same versus Kazuya? Can he prove that he's got a bit more pace compared to the guys around him? We'll have to wait and see as they come through the left-hander of turn number 17 here. But you can see the Doctor is looking very menacing, and I do think it's the case that the KRT driver is going to be going for a move shortly. You could see just how much confidence he has on the front end rotation of that car, and as he comes out the corner, this is going to be a move surely. This is critical. Doctor's got to get this done, because I think he's got a lot more pace compared to Kazuya. As he comes out from the slipstream, he looks to move into 1, and as they come under the brakes, we can see Kazuya's gone very deep on the brakes, and as a result the Doctor's there side by side, and Kazuya went as late as possible on the brakes there. He couldn't have gone any later, otherwise he would have taken Aurelius with him off onto the gravel into 1, but the Doctor makes his way through there, and you can see how much it means to the pair of them. The Prima driver did not want Doctor to find a way through, but in the end, it is the case that the Doctor has delivered the medicine and he struck true as they make their way out of turn 6 and now head up into 7, and now they've got to find their way past Aurelius, and it's the Doctor who has to find his way on through as they make their way through turn number 8. Once again, they have got 6 laps remaining, including this one, and the Doctor right now is looking to go after that podium. There is no doubt about it, but can he do it, or is it too far away? As they make their way through turn number 10 once again here, and he chases after Aurelius down the hill towards 11. And as they come on down the hill towards turn number 11 here, we can see in the chat Piosco saying that nobody outbreaks the Doctor. It does seem to be that case. And we can also see there what is Growly28 saying that go GMP, supporting his fellow RTA driver, and indeed rooting on the RTA team here as we see GMP in P2. But meanwhile, looking away from here and further down the order, I think we've got a bit of a battle kicking off here between Adamas and the Sarnas. They're making the move on what was Nixo there for P10. We've only just caught the tail end of that, but we'll wait and see how this plays out in the rundown towards 1 very shortly, as we can see that the 3 of them have been in the wars. And then further down the order, I'm hearing that Dacia has got Vulcan closing up to him. But meanwhile, looking away from that and back up towards the battle for P4, we can see the Doctor here making the move on Aurelius. It's a drag race down towards 1. He's already got it done, and the Doctor is now clear of this battle for what is P5 effective. Aurelius dropping down to P5 as they come out of turn number 2 and down towards 3. The next driver up the road for the Doctor is HKRT's Cossi 97, who is the best part of 5 seconds up the road. He has got 5 laps to close it down. Can he do it? We'll wait and see. I think he can. I think he's going to be fast enough, the Doctor, but we'll wait and see as he makes his way on through. Meanwhile, we can see here that Adamas has held onto that P9 ahead, and the Sarnas and also what is Nixo PL. But let's take a look back at the battle for P10 only moments ago. So this is in the run down towards turn number 11. Now, does Nixo get it wrong? So that's Adamas there. Does Nixo get it wrong? He does on the exit of 11. He goes up onto the apex of 12, and there's contact with Adamas, and that's why Adamas was coming through so rapidly there, and Nixo falling into 2 places there, and Adamas also almost ending up losing out on his race there. That was a very close moment between the 3 drivers, but that's how it all played out, and why we can see that Nixo has not got any damage. What about Adamas? None of the 3 got any damage from that, and I must admit, particularly for Adamas' situation, I am surprised there's no damage on that car. But as he makes his way through 12, he soldiers on and tries to go after Speed Hunter, who's 4.5 seconds up the road. And speaking of Speed Hunter, he's chasing after Farstan, who's 2 seconds ahead of him, but not able to close up for the time being. But meanwhile, having had the Doctor pass him, it's now Aurelius' turn to defend Kazuya. And as he makes his way out the final corner here, Kazuya I think is going to have a lot of momentum as they go on to lap 14. 4 laps remaining here, and Kazuya will want this P5. He's signaling it early here. He's looking for it. Aurelius goes a little defensive initially, but there's no way through for the Prima driver as they make their way through turn number 1. And you can see that Farstan is now starting to close up once again here. And I think the Canadians backed off for a bit. A little bit of a flicker of the lights there, but I think that's on our camera angle. And as they make their way through turn number 3, you can see Farstan is waiting for that opportunity. What I think he's hoping is that Kazuya's going to go for a move which will cause both of them, Kazuya and also Aurelius, to go deep into a corner, and Farstan can make the 2-for-1 style move that we have seen time and time again, particularly into turn 10 from multiple drivers. We will wait and see whether that is the case, but what I can tell you is that Aurelius right now is already 2.4 seconds off the back of the Doctor ahead of him, so the Doctor had a lot more pace to unleash, and he is absolutely bolting it right now after P3 man Cossi, as we see our P5 man make his way through turn number 10, and you see Kazuya looking large in the mirrors right now, looking threatening as they come out of the turn 10 corner and head down towards 11. I think for what is Kazuya at this point, he's got to nail the final sector and then go for that move late on. He hasn't got the run in sector 2 as all 3 drivers make their way through, and Farstan there run up onto the grass, and it's a disaster for Farstan as he goes wide and has to gradually rally across his way back onto the circuit. The Canadian's going to rejoin all the way down in P8, and as he makes his way on through, you can see Adamas there taking evasive action and coming around him to take P8 off of him, and we can see Sarnas not able to gain as they make their way through 15 and 16, but Farstan's got to get the dirt off the tyres, he's got to scrub it off the tyres and then get himself back on racing, and the Sarnas will look to capitalise as soon as possible as he makes the move there for P9 into 18, and Farstan needs to get the dirt off those tyres now, as meanwhile Aurelius here, he's got Prima Kazuya who's too far back to go for the move this time as they make their way into turn 1, but look at this, ladies and gentlemen, there's HKRT's Cossi, and then look at 1.5 seconds behind him is the Doctor. To give you an idea of the pace, that last lap Cossi at 140.1 as he goes goes deep into turn 3. Meanwhile, the Doctor, by comparison, a 1:38.5. He has closed down 1.6 seconds in a single lap. The Doctor is flying. He's not going to close down Charo come the end of this race, but right now I reckon that if he's able to nail Kossi come the end of this lap going on to lap 16, well, where is GMP by comparison? Well, GMP is 4 seconds up the road. I think the Doctor will make a charge after GMP, but he won't be able to close down that P2. I think the Doctor's targeting P3. Will he be able to deliver on it? That's the big question as they make the way up towards turn number 10. Once again, you can see Kossi really struggling for tyres now. That grip's just no longer there, as meanwhile Aurelius is holding off his fellow countryman for the time being of Kazuya. Both, of course, racing for different teams here. WSR ahead of Prima as they make their way down towards turn number 11. And further back, I can tell you that right now Nasana's having got past Fastan after Fastan's moment coming out of 12, leading up into 13. Coming out of 11 into 13. It's the situation where Nasanas right now will do everything he can to hold on to that position which has been gifted to him, but Fastan will have other words to say about that, I'm sure, as they make their way up the ascent through 13 this time and continue their way through to complete another lap. But as they do so, you can see that Nasanas open up that gap. I think Fastan's tyres may have just seen a little bit too much wear at this point. We'll wait and see. But meanwhile, in the battle for P3, they go on to lap 16. It's the penultimate lap. Kossi on the outside. Meanwhile, the Doctor's going for the move. Kossi tries to squeeze him a little bit there, but I think there's no way to defend this. I think he must recognise that the Doctor just simply has the pace by a huge margin. I think Kossi's decided, you know what, I'll settle for P4 and that'll be good enough for me. Kossi putting in good performances all the same as the Doctor passes him and now has to go after GMP. But remember, being 1.5 seconds a lap faster than GMP, what was GMP's pace that last time around the RTA driver? Here he is, the Italian set of 1:40.4. So for the Doctor, he was approximately almost 2 seconds faster on a comparative lap, but I think he hasn't got the time to close him down. Now we'll wait and see, but it could be the case as well. The Doctor's tyres now start to hit their cliff. We will know come the final lap. If that gap is within 2 seconds come the start of lap number 17, then it could be on right at the end. But GMP right now doing a good job of just keeping it together and not putting the car wide. No faults in the RTA driver as he makes his way down into 11. But meanwhile, Aurelius once again proving that he's a bit of a difficult fellow to overtake, as we can see him making his way down for 11 and into 12, and Kazuya's fallen back off him. I think the WSR driver here has done more than enough to hold off the Prima Esports driver, but we'll wait and see. I do think that Kazuya's charge for P5 has concluded here, unless he's saving it all up for one big climax on the final lap, which it can happen every so often. He might be backing off just to get some of the temperature out of the tyres, and indeed off those front brakes, running that dirty hot air off the back of Aurelius's car as it's coming off that wing. But as our leader's gone on to the final lap, here's the situation. Let's take a look at the gap between P2 and P4. The gap is only 3.5 seconds. That last lap from GMP was a 1:40.0. Meanwhile, from the Doctor, by comparison, it was a 38.9. I don't think he's got enough time to do it, the Doctor. He needs to close down 3 seconds and make the overtake on this lap. I think it's the case that he'll get close come the end, but it won't be enough time of day to do it. I think that is the question of the battle for P2 out of the window, as meanwhile we can see here Kossi just cruising to a P4 at this point. He's got a 2.5 second gap to manage versus Aurelius, who has broken away from Kazuya for the time being, as they make their way through turns 4 and 5, and we can see Kazuya here just not able to close up anymore as they come down into the right hander of turn number 6. We can see Kazuya sliding under entry there. I think the rear end has gone on that Lexus in the hands of Kazuya. It just does not seem to be comfortable. Meanwhile, further back we can see Adamas here in P7, Nasanas in P8, and then we've got Speed Hunter. He's still holding off Fastan here. Fastan not able to find his way through, and then further back we do have the battle for what is P12 between Dachu and Vulcan, and the two of them still together as they make the way out of turn 6, and Dachu holding on for the time being. But meanwhile, looking back to that battle here, we've got Fastan making the move on Speed Hunter into turn 10, and it does look as though here Fastan is able to get a late move for P9. He's found a way past the Mexican, and I don't think the GTMX driver is going to be able to come back at him. But meanwhile, having led this one from start to finish, as he comes out the final corners, it will be GTD's Trano 78 who takes the win in race number 4. A brilliant drive from the Italian, and it will be RTA's GMP who comes home in second place. A consistent drive from the Italian for RTA, and then round off our podium is KRT's the Doctor coming all the way from the back of the field. HKRT's Kossi, I think, is going to make it to the end in P4. He just about holds off Aurelius there. Prima Kazuya in P6. KRT as Adamas will come home in P7 when all is said and done. as he'll be pleased with that one. It'll be Honey's Nasana 69 in P8, and then we're going to have Fast Dan in P9 with that last minute move on Speed Hunter for P10, and then we can see here it's Nixo PL who comes home in P11 as he comes out the final corner, and actually just holds a Vulcan in the end. That completes our final race. Congratulations to all of our drivers, but congratulations to our winner, GTD's Trano from Italy. What a brilliant race to wrap up our racing from tonight. And here are your race results for race number 4, subject to any stewards' inquiries. In the end, it was GTD's Tro who would lead this one from start to finish, and finished last in race number 3, giving himself that pole position for race number 4, and a brilliant drive all the way through. And he won by a gap of 7.5 seconds ahead of RTA's GMP in the end. The RTA driver proving to be very consistent and achieving 4 top 5 finishes in 4 races tonight. 3 fifth places and then a 2nd place. Meanwhile, in P3, it was the Doctor with a brilliant drive to P3 in the end, not quite having enough in the tank to bring home perhaps the 2nd place, and outside of the podium was HKRT's Cossi 97 and WSR's Aurelius, and particularly a big shout out there to Aurelius with a consistent drive and a very well managed drive to hold off in particular Primus Kazuya, who in the end would finish P6 by simply not having enough in the tank to take on the WSR driver. Meanwhile, P7, it was KRT's Adamus in the end, with a good drive there from the KRT driver. Probably ruined what could have been if he'd found a way through earlier on in the race compared to his teammate. P8 went to Honey's Nasana 69. Fast Dan there from AFC in P9. And then Speed Hunter rounding off the top 10 from GTMX. Nixo PO in P11. ATR Dachu in P12. And then, last but not least, WSR's Vulcan in P13. The fastest lap being set on lap 12 by GTD's Traro 78, a 1:38.380. And if you give me a brief moment, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just entering the race results here into our points tracker. Now, it's be able to give you a summary who, subject to stewards' inquiries, of course, have been our top 3 performers tonight and will gain the most from the racing going into the final round in a month's time. So just give me a very brief moment. Well, when all is said and done, ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you that our top 3 overall after 4 races tonight was as follows. Our winner in Group C, subject to any stewards' inquiries, of course, was, by looks of things, GTD's Traro, with a 2nd place in race 1, a 1st place in race 2, a 13th place in race 3, and then the win, of course, in race number 4. 2 wins and a 2nd place, giving him a huge overhaul of points there to come home as our overall winner. 2nd place went to Primus Kazuya with a 1st, a 4th, a 1st and a 6th. And then 3rd place went to Kautis the Doctor with a 3rd, a 12th, a 2nd and a 3rd. And consistency being shown from the Doctor then minus his result in race 2. Outside of our top 3, completing our top 5 in the end in P4, it was RTA's GMP with 3 5th place finishes and a 2nd place, a brilliantly consistent drive from the RTA driver. And then 5th was the Canadian of Fast Dan, representing AFC there, with a 6th, a 2nd, a 6th and a 9th. Not able to make it symmetrical results, but a good drive there from him all the same. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, brilliant battles up and down the field, and that concludes race number 4, and indeed round number 5 for our Group C drivers in the 3rd split. What a brilliant way to say goodbye to the Autopolis circuit. Fantastic racing and battles up and down the field throughout. And now we must look ahead to in a month's time for what is the season finale. Come towards the end of November, we will be back. And I'm sure I'll be in the commentary box in some guise for the season finale of GT Fusion at 2021, the Team World Championship on Gran Turismo Sport. But until then, it is time for us to say goodbye. It's goodbye from me. I have been your host and commentator for Group C tonight, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit. We have been GT Fusion, and until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and the most important thing as always, remember to stay on track. Good night.